CFO. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Again, we talk about a few things, but want to get the information out right away. The annual fundraiser coming up. This one is September 26th at Chop Value YYC Warehouse from 7 to 10 p.m. At 3619 Blackburn Road in the Southeast. So just kind of give us a bit of a kind of lay of the land. Like what does this kind of help with, and what will people be getting if they do come out and kind of support this event?
100%. Yeah. So as you said, it's where else can you go to a concert that is in a warehouse that recycles chopsticks by day and then hosts fun community events like this one, sometimes occasionally in the evening. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm on the skeleton team. I represented Canada for the last, gosh, just over a decade. I've been in over 80 international races, and it's called the final push because it's very fitting. Gonna be my last season representing Canada before I retire from skeleton. So everything raised, the ticket prices and the silent auction, and any donations from the event, go directly to my season. And basically, what we're up against is Canadian sport over the last few years has very much become pay to play, especially in my smaller niche sport of skeleton, the headfirst tobogganing kind. And so I pay team fees to our organization, and then as well as for my own flights. And then I also pay for my off-season training all by myself, essentially on my own. So uh, everything raised, I'm very lucky that Blue Willow Entertainment, who is a local organization here in Calgary that represents artists. They've offered to host the event and find the music that's going to be playing for me and a lot of the event logistics. So what you can expect is some amazing local musicians there, and then as well as lots of great silent auction items, and then also a night to just like connect and get out and meet people in the community. I'd like to say one of the big things I've developed over my time as a skeleton athlete here in Calgary is a fantastic community of people. So if you're looking to meet some people in my network, it's also a great opportunity to break into that. We know Calgary is all about who you know.
hmm Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like you said, like a lot of partners along the way. So probably meet some very interesting people at this event. What you said, like a very unique location as well. But you said there this is the last year of competing as a skeleton athlete. I guess what went into that decision, and was it I would imagine a difficult one to make?
Yeah, I mean it all came about in the right way, and if there's not a lot of sadness around it, it's a lot of joy, a lot of excitement. Uh, as I said, I've been doing this will be my 14th season and 11th year representing Canada internationally. And it's just kind of, I'm not getting any younger, and we have lots of great people coming into the program right now, that are, going to make the next push for the next generation. And so part of my why for actually coming back this year is to be a part of like being in a mentor or like leadership position, racing with those athletes and kind of showing them that some of the professional sides, like how you conduct yourself, and like, they're learning to slide, but they're also learning how to like build a brand, which I feel like something I've done fairly well and like fundraise. And, so I kind of coming back for that piece, and also just to have like, yeah, some final closure. Last year, I was lucky enough to race, I earned the opportunity to race 7 World Cups for Canada. And, that was like a dream of a lifetime. And I really did hum and haw back and forth at the start of the off season whether I was going to come back for one more year. And just unfinished business is what it came down to, and wanting to go back and like race in Whistler, which is my now home track now that the Calgary track is gone. So race in Whistler on home soil one last time. And yeah, kind of end things on my own terms was really so it all just felt like it naturally came together, which I think like it shows that it's the right thing. And not a lot of athletes have the opportunity to end their career on their own terms. And I feel
Mhm.
very lucky to like know in advance and be able to like plan. You can't plan how you're going to feel, but like plan I know where I'm going to be and when the final end is, versus a lot of athletes, you get injured or you get cut, your contract's not renewed or something like that. They don't know it's the end.
Yeah.
I was talking to a Stamps player at an event a couple months ago, and he said less than 5% of players get the opportunity. He might be talking maybe more, and so in his world, but it's a very small percentage. So yeah, that's kind of what went into it. And basically I'm getting older and the next generation's getting faster and they're younger. So yeah, I see the writing on the wall that it's time for me to be done.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's great that you get to go out kind of on your own terms, and there isn't a, oh, if I would have just this, that, or the other thing that maybe it didn't. That can be a tough thing. Being around a few athletes who have retired and kind of been forced to. That's a difficult transition to a difficult transition to make. You were mentioning there kind of the mentoring role in this last year, that this the last dance, so to speak. And obviously the on track very, very important, but that off track as well. A couple times there, you mentioned in the fundraising thing and building that brand. It's more than just get out there and rip around now. That there's a lot that goes into this off the track, both like in how you live, treat your body, all those different things, and the networking aspect of it. And then another area as well is there is a life after this. That's not necessarily something you think about when you are flying headfirst down a track at a billion miles an hour, is wondering what will be my backup plan. But there is a number of different layers, and I would imagine that that's something that is going to be good that you can kind of pass that along. Is that something that's always kind of been in the back of your mind, or did that kind of come with age and wisdom as well?
I think it more came with age and wisdom. Someone pointed out that like I said, I raced World Cups last year, and I was reflecting back when I first started the sport, and I was so excited. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and watch the World Cup team competing in Latvia or wherever. And I mean, I don't know if anyone in our program did that, but it was like the thought of like, oh my gosh, what if that next person is like watching me? And they don't have to be Canadian; it could be from all over the world, but. It kind of started to think like, wow, I am that person. So yeah, I kind of came into it, and it was also just a suggestion, I think, as I have been around the team and I've been commended for like how I conduct myself professionally and how I've built this, this, I hate to say brand, but how I built this like brand of who I am as an athlete and my community work. And then as well, like I've also been working full time for the last 6 years during my career. Like a lot of people talk about like having a backup plan, and I've been one of the few in our sport. There's actually a handful of us, but that have been able to navigate chasing our dreams on the track and still developing a career. So I think there's like that piece that you also don't have to be all or nothing, and just being a bit of a role model in that respect. And it's okay if someone wants it to be their only thing, go for it, and you're
Mhm.
able to fund your career and do all that stuff. But yeah, and it actually came about at recently around the fundraising piece from a teammate of mine who's newer in his career, and he was like, can we go for coffee and I ask you questions about your fundraising events you've ran in the past? And I was like, of course, but I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea. Like when I started, I had no idea what I was doing, but my back was against the wall. I had to raise $15,000 that year, and I did it. Or I
Wow.
raised like I think 12, which covered the majority of it. That's amazing. And
Mhm.
and so I think I was like, wow, I did reflect. I was like, I do know something now, but it was born out of like my back was against the wall and what do I do? So I'm proud that now this is my fourth fundraiser coming up, and I say it's going to be the best because we have a whole, we have bands and music and a stage, and it started as just a very grassroots thing. And a friend of mine's local business 4 years ago, she owned a clinic at the time, and she's like, come have it in my physio clinic in the waiting room after hours, and we kind of pulled it all together. And now to come this far where I'm like, we're gonna have a full-on stage set up with musical guests is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. Like just throwing an event like that in general is awesome, but then to have it be in support of the dream and this final season. So what does where are we at off season wise for you right now? Like I would imagine like off season is very much in quotations. I'm sure there's a couple of breaks here and there, but it would probably be another full-time job. So where are we at in that progression, I guess, right now, getting ready for another season?
Yeah, so generally, so I am training, 5 to 6 days a week, and we
Mhm.
push in the ice house up at Winsport. We have an indoor push facility where it's the only chance we get really to push on ice before the season. And then just lifting weights and running fast is kind of where things are at. I have a couple more months before really right before Canadian Thanksgiving. We have a camp that's like a push camp. It's our final camp all together as a team here in Calgary. And then shortly after that, a bunch of us head off to Norway to start our preseason. And then
Mm.
from then on, we're chasing ice all over the world. So uh, to be determined where exactly, but I know we'll hit Norway and then we'll hit Whistler, our home track. And then from then on, everyone kind of finds out what races they're doing and where they're going in the world. So yeah, it's kind of yesterday was my first workout in the gym with my strength coach where I was like, oh, it doesn't feel, because we lift a lot of heavy weights, but now's the time it kind of starts to taper off and we're just
Mm.
maintained for the season. And again, it's very bittersweet because this is the last like off season I have where I'm like, oh, this is my favorite phase. But then I got really sad because I was like, oh, like that heavy lifting, lots of reps, lots of complaining is over. And not to say you can't do that as an adult post athlete life, but like it is the like everything is so bittersweet along the way. So
Mhm.
even though I left, I was like, wow, I don't feel like I've been ground into mush on the ground after a lift. It is kind of like now this next phase. So yeah, it is getting down to crunch time and kind of, I start to book things in my calendar and look ahead and go, oh, I'm actually going to be like out of the country in 9 weeks from now, which is kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were talking before, like the summer just flew by. And I would imagine as someone who has quite a few important things to do once the snow falls, that feeling would probably be expedited a little bit. But yeah, I like the facilities out at Winsport. I've been there a couple times as a broadcaster. You get certainly more use out of it than I, but I was there this summer with a couple of things with Hockey Canada, and it was still busy then. And like I've only ever been in the winter, and you see like, okay, yeah, I know there's stuff, but whatever. But to see how it is able to be used kind of year round and all of that, like I don't think it fully kind of hit me until I was there in August and there was people doing stuff. It seems like that would be quite the benefit to have that kind of a facility right here in your backyard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge benefit. It's a shame that we lost the actual sliding track in
Mm.
2019. That was a huge hit for our sliding community. But that being said, it is kind of the hub of we're able to push up there, and there's obviously great facilities. The funny thing is that actually, like, I mean, I was a figure skater in my past life before I started skeleton, and the rinks is actually the first time I ever visited Winsport was my club moved up and we were skating in the
Mm.
Mark and McPhail rinks. So yeah, that facility is fantastic. And we had our camp like in July with our team up at Winsport. And I remember we were up in one of the boardrooms and we looked down and there was a bunch of the Calgarian NHL people from all, that they train in Calgary, but they then go off to their clubs. We looked down and
Mhm.
there was a few familiar faces. We're like,
Mm.
oh, that's pretty cool to see some people skating down there and wow, like what skill. So yeah, it's you never know who you're gonna run into. We saw the Rugby Canada guys that they just played
Mm.
last weekend against the US here at McMahon and we've been seeing them up at Winsport for a good few weeks they've been here. So super cool. You never know who you're gonna see. The Calgary Wild FC too. We see them in the gym
Mhm.
quite a bit, which is really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it's a pretty well growing sports community out here the last little while. Like I know it is flames out here a lot, but it's turning into more than that, right? Like Cavalry FC did their thing. Surge also at Winsport, but Calgary Wild FC have like the support there. It seems good. Like it is as someone who has been a part of the Calgary sports scene for as long as you have. What has that been like to kind of see the progression of things and how it is kind of grown in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, getting that the Calgary Wild FC is such a huge opportunity for us, and I've been so impressed. I haven't made it out to a game yet, unfortunately, because I have such a busy calendar, but
Hmm.
I do want to make it out, and I think that's huge. It shows, I think we're a city of dreamers, and we're putting our hands up for stuff. The Surge, another great example. I've been out to a couple of their games actually last year, and I was so impressed. I'm not a huge I think what I love about these events, so like I'm not a huge basketball fan, but it's like the whole experience. They do
Hmm.
such a great job of like, between the whistles, there's dancers and there's like someone hosting in game and all this stuff. And I think that's what I'm most impressed about is like you don't have to be the top fan in all of these sports, but you can go and watch and it's about the fan fest before and all that stuff. So I think Calgary does such a great job, and I'm glad we're finally putting our hand up for more of these things because
Hmm.
for a while there it felt like we were like losing a lot of our sports scene and it's sad we've lost our track and I know what that feels like, but it's starting to feel like we're building that momentum back up and it's going to help us in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And so I think people are excited about sport here. I think here, and that's what's the coolest thing is I don't care what sport the kids are watching as long as they're watching someone and they're like excited about it and they're like helping them dream big and think about what they can be when they grow up. Because that's
Yeah.
that's kind of how I fell into sport was watching the 2002 Olympics and Haley Wickenheiser and the hockey team. And like, I remember watching that in my elementary school. And, that wasn't here, but it was close by, same time zone, Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And I think about they're hosting the Winter Olympics in just under a decade here in the 2034 or something like that,
Hmm.
2032. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but I think about like the next generation getting excited about sport, and I think it's just awesome. Like, and I mean, we have Sport Calgary who does such a great job. We run into the All Sport One Day kids a lot in the ice house. They get to
Mm.
try luge, and we're hand in hand. We're in the same ice house, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No, I love the all sport one day thing. Like, just try a bunch of different stuff, because like I know everyone is like, no, we need to play hockey 12 months a year, or we need to do this, but it's like, man, like there's a lot of really cool things that you don't know what you're going to be good at. And so just try some stuff. And it seemed like it really. I remember I was on the radio out here when we voted no on the Olympics that would be coming up here very, very shortly in 26. And it kind of felt like, well, obviously there's a lot that goes into that kind of a decision, but I was like, okay, maybe that was the decision to make, but we need to assess what we're doing here. Like we need to figure a few things out. And it seemed like from there, we were ready for a new era of sport. And it seemed to kind of branch off of that. So it's been kind of fun to see how everything, I guess, is kind of developed out of what was a pretty down time at that particular moment anyway.
yeah, yeah. That was a tough moment, and I mean, if there's anything sport taught me, it's that you need to go through those hard moments in order to grow. But I know for
Mhm.
sure, like, not all our facilities are city owned. I know there's like multitude of funding levels, but I know that I have my eyes on the city election and in my ward and for mayor, and it's dependent on a recreation strategy. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking high performance sport. I'm talking, our next generation, our kids. So I know I have that in mind as I'm looking, among other things, but
Yeah.
as I'm looking at candidates and stuff like that. So I think we're onto something good, but it's gonna keep it. We need to keep pushing forward, and there are lots of people that need to keep pushing forward. I really hope the Olympics and Paralympics get people excited too, and I hope people tune in and watch, but I also hope that the people tuning in to watch think, "Wow, I could be at this event in person."
Mhm.
If the city had chosen something different, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I get sad about it all the time, but
Yeah, sorry to bring that up. Yeah.
no, no, it's all good. It's so long ago, and I mean, who's to say? I'm not one to say that it was the perfect yes decision,
Mhm.
but we spent a lot of money otherwise on the same facilities. We're building a brand new Amazing Flames arena regardless. So,
Yeah.
uh, anyways, it'll all work out, but I hope that we consider it in the future because I mean, I know that the Oval needs some repairs and like some major repairs I've heard from the speed skaters, and
Mm.
where's that going to come from? And hosting a games could help bring that, to fruition. Otherwise, we're going to lose that too, and it's made recruiting for skeleton and luge and bobsleigh way harder.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and unfortunately now we're not spending money in the Calgary economy. We're like bouncing back and forth, or people aren't even moving to Calgary anymore, versus we have a whole generation of sliding athletes that chose to move to Calgary, and like now they call Calgary home and they're part of our society and our people, and we're not getting them anymore, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah, that is because it's such a big part of everything out here. Well, want to get back to focused on you here. The main topic, but for you, obviously a lot of emotions with this season. Last year, as you mentioned, what went very, very well for you. Aside from world records and finishing first and everything that you do, what are some of the goals and everything that you want for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think it's tough to answer that question because I don't know exactly what races I'm going to. So I mean it's always tough to set that, but I think for me definitely like if I'm on the North America's Cup, I'm chasing winning those races, top two.
Mhm.
Being a 14-year veteran of the sport, you're obviously always looking to be at the top, and yeah, so for me on that piece, it's kind of that, but then also just like leaving it all out there. I think a lot, and that's part of what has driven me to come back this last year is uh to get rid of that what if piece. And so I think by really going all in and putting all my chips in and going, then I'm gonna have no regrets. And
Mhm.
that's part of what the fundraiser's for, is making sure that any opportunity that comes my way, I can't say no. Or I'm not driven to say no. Just so people like have an understanding, every race week that we essentially race in skeleton is $3,500 team fee for the race week. So, and then plus I pay, and then you pay for your own flight to get there. So if
Oh
I'm
wow.
racing, yeah. And so some weeks are double race weeks, so it will still be 3,500, but then you race the Saturday, Sunday. But I'm talking that I'm probably going to race 6 or 7 race weeks and then plus a training camp in Norway and then plus a few other training camps out in Whistler. It adds up rather quickly. That's easily a 30 grand season right there. So, um, people always think, where does that money go? You're asking for such a large, large chunk. So, part of that is just, yeah, being prepared to not have to turn down anything down if something comes up.
Right.
Last minute flight somewhere, I'm in. Here's my money. Anyways, I think it's tough to put. I've moved away from being results driven, just for my own sanity. I think our sport is measured to the hundredth of a second, and
Yeah.
sometimes you're just not. Sometimes you're just not that on the day, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I would like to achieve a world or not a world record. I mean, I'd love to achieve a world record. I don't think. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a world ranking, like my best world ranking. So I think right now my best world ranking would have been 42nd quite a few years
Okay.
ago, and I want to maybe break into that top 40 or something like that. That would be great. I mean, again, kind of a cherry on top, but you're always trying to chase other people and points across circuits and all that stuff. So yeah, I know I can't exactly answer that for you, but
No, 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 it's fine. It's fine. That was a good answer. Because again, like I think you just think, oh no, I just need like there's this one focus on everything, and there's a lot of different goals that you can set. And yeah, success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people as the season goes on. I do have one kind of, I guess, technical one, and then we'll get into the final push here with the fundraiser again. But like I watched Skeleton. And obviously, from my uneducated perspective, you are just diving headfirst down a thing, and then whatever happens, happens. Obviously, there is a lot more into it than just that. But kind of, I guess, walk me through how does one get faster and quicker and better at something like that? Because I genuinely would have no idea.
no, that's a fair question. So, I mean, first off, your physical, like we push the sled, so that's why we train all summer to push the sled as fast as possible. That's your only opportunity to gain velocity. From the
Hmm.
moment you load on your sled and you do that final push-off sled into your sled, you're trying to not lose velocity all the way down the track. So, that's your opportunity. Obviously, it's going downhill, so like you're gaining it, but like you're not pushing it. There's no little engines in it. It's just like you
Yeah.
and the ice. So there's that piece. And then so physical, push the sled as fast as you can. That's what we train all summer to do and get that nice final load step. And then from then on, we're driving the track. And I know when you watch it at a top level, it doesn't look like we're doing anything, which is the biggest compliment if someone ever says that to you as a skeleton athlete. We are driving the sled with, just like the kids' song, our head, shoulders, knees, and toes. If you see our toes out, that is the like emergency brake, like something is going wrong, we're pointed at a roof or something like that. But a lot of the finesse is actually in our sled. There's steering panels under our shoulders, and then there's two knee panels. And so that makes a frame. And then obviously you can imagine it flexes, especially under G-force.
Hmm.
So that's a bit of how, so I mean, you're riding that line of not steering so hard that you crush all your speed, but steering enough that you're not going to hit the roof or hit a wall.
Right.
Because those are also not fast. So it's that, and whoever crosses the finish line the fastest. There's also ice conditions come into play and different equipment stuff, and then obviously your mind. Our sport is a lot of what's done between your mind, between your ears, and not doubting yourself and being able to let it go and trust yourself and all this stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot that comes into play, and I think that's why our sport is so interesting to watch. And women's
Hmm.
skeleton, out of all the sliding sports, is the wildest. Like, if you watch a World Cup, you don't know who's going to win until it's over. The
Yeah.
top 10 women, they can all be on the podium any given day, even the top 15 women, I would say. It's kind of like, where are they going to fall today? And I think that's really cool about our sport is it's not one of those ones that you're like, oh, well, they push the fastest and they're going to finish the fastest. It's kind of all these factors that all come together. And depending on the day, it's different percentages of each. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the mental part of it. I know we've talked about that before, but like I if I flub anything when I'm talking, I'll beat myself up for a week. And that's just talking. Well, when you're talking about like world rankings and the differences of we're not like 10, 15 seconds. We're not dealing with that. We are dealing with tenths and hundredths of seconds that part of it would drive me insane where if I just did this, that, or the other thing differently, that would stay with me for forever, and you'd have to get over it either in like 25 minutes or a week or something like that. That part of it, I would imagine that's another area that gets learned over time, is not let it go, but kind of learn from it, and just don't force that one a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of more just that like repeated exposure, and you just
Mhm.
just like no, that's just how it is. But I mean, I would say I beat myself up for a long time about last season. Like I said, I was my first year on World Cup, and I had some high goals that I set, and then I got my ass kicked, and like was coming, 30th, I think 35th. I came in one race, and I'm like, man, like this is really tough. And I thought about it all throughout the summer until literally like I watched all my races on TV for like on YouTube for the first time. I didn't watch any of them through the whole season, and I finally watched them, and I think that was the closure that I needed. So, I mean, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but yeah, you crash and you got to take the truck up back to the top and talk to your coach, and you go again in the next like 20 to 40 minutes. So,
Right.
and you're like, how am I not going to crash in that corner in the next run? So I don't like it is a skill, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
just at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you're like, well, I am choosing to do this. So like, am I going to
Mhm.
walk away? Like in that piece. So yeah, I mean, there's always, obviously we know our limits, but within reason, you're like, I can get through this. I've gotten through it before, and I have 14 years of experience of pushing through a lot of different situations that I feel like not a lot can phase me at this point.
Well, that's good. Good. One last time here. Grace Defoe's annual fundraiser, September 26th, Chop House YYC Warehouse from 7 to 10 at 3619 Blackburn Road Southeast. One more time, for those for those listening, how it helps and what people will be getting out of this event coming up here at the end of September.
Yeah, so how it helps goes directly to paying my team fees and the fees that I owe to Bobsleigh Canada Skeleton for my racing. And you get to jump on board of a local athlete and help me kind of in my last push, I'm calling it. You said the last dance, it's my last push.
Love
Uh
that.
yeah, and what to expect, community, live music, silent auction, a good time. Yeah, come out to Chop Valley YYC on September 26th. I can promise it's the place to be. Um, Except maybe unless you're going to the Amanda Marshall concert, because that seems to be the only other thing that night. So
Oh,
sorry to.
that's a tough draw. That's a tough one.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. My even my mom went, "Ooh," but I really love Amanda Marshall. I'm like, okay, but like, anyways, yeah, come out, have a good time. Tickets are online on Show Pass, but by all means, if you don't know till the day of at 6:30 p.m., come on down. We'll get you sorted and we'll get you a ticket at the door because I know that we all have busy lives, but you don't want to miss it. So
Mhm. Right on. Grace, thank you so much for this. Best of luck with the fundraiser and with the last push going forward.
thanks so much, Peter.
And
lost you. I feel like I'll always love you. I'll always love you. Always. comfortable with you. I feel like
We have breaking news from the National Hockey League, plus a big-time performance on Monday Night Football, and it's time to get ready for Week 2 in fantasy football. A lot to get to, so let's do that. Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on a Tuesday. My name is Peter Klein. Again, thank you so much for joining today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. We got great Calgary swag, plus the Hanging in the Dome with Jerome shirts for Kids Sport up right now, and they are going very quickly. If you hear my phone buzzing a lot, it is because the sales have been just going through the roof. So huge thank you to everyone for supporting Kids Sport and checking out some of our stuff. While there's also some great stuff up there for Sea of Dead, non-Jerome related, but great way to celebrate Dustin Wolf signing a contract with the Flames is getting a Hanging in the Dome with Jerome shirt and helping out Kids Sport. We are also today fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Like I said, we got breaking news from the National Hockey League involving the Calgary Flames, so we'll talk all about Dustin Wolf's new contract, plus the recap of Monday Night Football. Just checking out where all the takes are after week 1, and then some fantasy football stuff to wrap up the football conversation. NHL preview is going to continue as well, as I take accountability for things that happened last year, and we look at some of the biggest mistakes in the NHL's offseason, CFL stuff, boxing, wrestling, a whole lot on the stream here today. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Let's dive right in. The Calgary Flames have locked in a key piece of their franchise for a really long time. I would love to be hot take guy and say, and this is why they screwed it up. I can't. This is a home run on all accounts. Let's talk about Dustin Wolf staying a Calgary Flame. Dustin Wolf is a member of the Calgary Flames now and will be for a really long time, signing a 7-year contract worth $7.75 million a season. Going to look at this from all angles, as we do, but this is a home run for the Calgary Flames. Toxic in the chat before doing a wellness check when the intro music was playing a little bit too long. But Toxic saying it's a great deal for both parties. I completely agree with Toxic on this one in the Twitch chat. This is a phenomenal move for the Flames. I just think this kid at every level has shown that he is a high-level goaltender. He has thrived, he has faced adversity, and he has learned from that and grown from that. Figuratively, not literally. But he has done a really good job, I think, of checking every box that you would want to see from a franchise goaltender. The first part of that is he is obviously very talented, right? Like that is the first and biggest part of this one, is that talking about, he's shown that he can grow and learn from adversity and all that. You also have to be good, right? Like there has to be a base level of this guy can play the sport, and he does that at a really high level. This is a dude who is going to get Vezina votes regularly throughout his career if he can continue to play at that high level. But it is not just like, okay, this guy is very good. You also see, like I said before, what he does when there's a bit of a speed wobble. And 2 years ago, it was a weird situation. He came in, didn't play for a couple weeks, got thrown to the, pardon the pun, Wolves, and didn't look great. And then he's there as kind of the backup to Jacob Markstrom, who's super pissed that he's still in Calgary after they asked him to waive his no move. So it was a strange situation and he wasn't great. But there was also some tactical things that he wasn't doing very well. And I think he recovered on that. I think he showed the athleticism that he has. I think that he showed the intelligence and awareness to grow from the mistakes that he had and learn from them for last year. So you know that even if you have one of the league has figured him out moments, that this kid is still going to be able to then counterpunch and figure it out himself. So I think it is a great deal. I think it is a really, really smart move for the Calgary Flames here. We have Connor D in the chat asking, PK, I love the new Wolf deal. What do you think of his partner this season being a goalie with less games played than him? Only a second-year goalie, and he's the vet. That's my concern. I think there's a little bit there. I don't think that is an invalid take, Connor D, by any stretch of the imagination. I do like having, I guess, quote unquote, an adult in the room. That is something that I have talked about a lot in having like a Vladar there, or bringing in someone else who has quite a bit of experience for Calgary. So I can see where there would be a bit of a hesitation with having him be the veteran now after one season. I do think he is quite mature, and I think he has kind of taken to this quite well. And I would suggest that the coaching staff that they have can kind of help guide him along as well. But no, that like there is certainly a bit of you would kind of prefer there to be a mentor there, because the one thing that he hasn't really dealt with is being the guy when it goes sideways, right? Because when it was going sideways with Markstrom a couple of years ago, it was Markstrom. And last year, he was keeping him in it right to the end. This year, I don't anticipate that being a thing. And so it's one thing when you're young and you have a save percentage of 910 and you're winning games and you're in a playoff race. But when you're young and you have a save percentage of 903 and the team's getting their head caved in, that becomes a problem. So I can see where that having a veteran there to be like, hey man, not your fault. Not your fault. It's not. Look what's in front of you. It ain't your fault. The team hasn't scored 3 goals in a month. Not on you, my guy. So hopefully the veteran leadership that is in Calgary will help him with that. But yes, it would be beneficial to have someone with a bit more experience than either a Cooley or Prevetsov along for the ride. I think for Calgary, tactically, having a backup goalie who stole games for you a season ago is annoying as hell when you're trying to tank. So I do think there is a little bit of that of, hey, can we just lock in the non-Wolf games? Can we do that? That would be awesome. I appreciate that. Jay Smells in the YouTube chat asking a fantasy football question. We'll get to the fantasy football in a second. For my ease of editing all this stuff, I want to stick with the hockey first, and then we'll get to the fantasy football question here in just a moment. But back on this side of it, back on the Flames side of this deal, I think looking at how, again, Toxic's point, the mental makeup of Wolf. Yes, 100%. This guy has got it kind of locked in between the ears. I think he's great in that sense. And he's obviously very talented, all of those things. There is a very real chance he spends almost the entirety of this contract being underpaid, right? Like there is a world where he is elite level goaltender for 7 seasons, and this looks like one of the best contracts in the NHL. Now, we do have to look, as little fun as it is, we do have to look at what worst case scenario could look like with this contract. And let's say, like, obviously worst case scenario is injury and something catastrophic happening. But from a hockey standpoint, let's say like injury problems become a thing. He is a slight human and plays a contact sport, albeit one where his position doesn't allow for much contact. But still, there's not a lot to him. Injuries can happen. Or maybe the league does figure him out or something else. And it's just, he ends up being not as good. And the rookie season is the best that we see from him. If that happens, with the salary cap going up, I just don't think that this contract is going to be an albatross for this team at $7.75 million. So I think it's great. I think if the player reaches the high end, which is more likely than not, if he reaches the high end, this is a steal of a deal. If he stays at what we think his median could be, it's a perfect contract. And if he sucks, it's fine. It's not going to kill you. And he has already shown enough potential, quite frankly, that if we're a few years into this thing and Calgary is starting to come on, the combination of Gavin McKenna and Zane Parekh is lighting the world on fire for the Flames, but the goalie is a problem. He showed enough potential that you could trade him to a coming out of a rebuild team that's like, oh, well, we can fix him or something like that. Like, I don't see any downside in this for the Calgary Flames. The other aspect of it, I do think there is a little bit of importance that this is an American-born dude who can be a superstar who wants to stay in Calgary. And I remember when Gaudreau and Tkachuk left, and some of the talk was, let's not draft American-born players here because there's something here that they don't want to stick around. and they just want to get out of here and whatever. So had a pretty good run with Swedes, some pretty good Finns of the past, Canadians, obviously. Let's just stick with that. Let's go there and not worry about our neighbors to the south. I can see where people are coming from on that. I think that's a little overblown, and I think this is an example of why, where you can keep stars in Calgary, and just because the birth certificate or the passport may not line up with the postal code or area code or whatever, zip code, that's what y'all do down there, it still doesn't mean that he's going to want to leave automatically. I think that kind of talk can get overblown substantially, right? So I do think that to quiet that conversation, to kind of make everyone shut up about the American players don't want to be here and everything like that, to get this done, it feels good. And then for Dustin Wolf, it's security, right? Like, it's an organization that has put a lot of focus on him, made him feel very important, and put a lot into his development. And again, it's security at a very good rate for a guy in a sport where injuries happen. So I just think it makes all the sense in the world. Obviously, the next thing up on the agenda for Calgary is a Rasmus Andersson move. I still don't think that this gets to opening day. I have kind of said before that the talk of, we can let this drag into the season is a negotiation tactic. I don't think it makes a lick of sense to let this drag out that long. I would much rather have all the different pieces in place for the young Calgary Flames. Now, maybe the Zane Parekh injury that he's dealing with right now changes that math a little bit, but I still think that that's a deal that has to get done. And then you do have the decision to be made around Michael Backlund's contract and what you do with that player who is your captain, who has been one of the veterans in the locker room for a very long time, but might want a chance to play meaningful games. And I don't know if you're going to be doing that while he is still an effective player on your hockey team. So some decisions to be made for Calgary, but they have done some very tidy work in locking in some very key pieces of the franchise moving forward. That we're going to have quite a bit more hockey talk throughout the stream. So keep your hockey questions coming. Anything you want to do, just send them off into the chat and we can talk about it. As I said with the fantasy football question that came in, I tend to, if we're not talking about that, just because I'm editing and all that, I'll finish what we're talking about, and then we can get to any questions you may have. But keep them coming in the chat. Those are always greatly appreciated. And while you're at it, make sure you share this video with your friends. I love doing these. I love doing these live, and I really enjoy the conversations that we get to have with the chat and everything like that. And I very much appreciate everyone who is watching. I just wish y'all had more people to chat with in here. So send them off, send the videos off when we're live. That would help me out a great deal. And if you're listening in podcast form or watching this after, fire them away and send it to some people you like and a couple people you don't, just to mess with them a little bit. But that would really help out with Couch Potato Diary. Another chat here from Connor. Can we get some letter grades for the Zeri Coronado Ball Frost Wolf extensions? Okay, sure. Let me just pull them up so I have them. Apologies, I don't have them memorized, but I am going to just to be sure. Let's find them here. Letter grades for the extensions. All right. Well, we'll start with the one that I know off the top of my head. With Dustin Wolf. Boy, it gets dark when I go to a website that has a bit more black on it. Hey. The Dustin Wolf extension. If we're doing grades on Calgary Flames contracts that they've handed out, I think this is, honestly, this is going to seem like I'm an easy grader. I think it's an A+. I don't know where the downside is. If he is, it just gone, right? Like $7.75 million a season, all of a sudden turns him into Plaxico Burress, and he is just all the way out of it. I still think at that money, with the team where they're at right now, it's not going to hurt him. The salary cap is going up. And like I said before, if this contract does start to become a problem, I think he has shown enough of a track record that if the only thing you can do is get rid of this kid, there's still going to be a team that will be desperate enough trying to come out of a rebuild that's like, hey, this guy has the pedigree. We can fix this. Let's go. And you can still at least get out of it and try to save it. So I think everywhere you look with this contract, it just makes all the sense in the world. And I think even the worst case feels like it's something you can get out of. So honestly, genuinely, A+. I don't see a downside to this thing at all. The only way you could have made this better for the Flames is if it was wildly unfair for the player, 8 years at league minimum. But in terms of what could rationally be done, perfect, 10 out of 10, no notes. The Zeri contract extension, it was 3 years at 3.78, takes him up to 1 year left of RFA. I will say this one is a B+. I personally, I think the kid's locked in. I think that there is a very talented hockey player there. And I get that the results weren't in there. So you do bake in some of the risk with it only being 3 years. I feel like I would want to lock him in a bit longer term because I believe in the talent that much. But I can understand, prove it, right? And I will gladly double this contract next go around if you have earned it. But let's bake in some of the risk on both sides. And we'll do it that way. So I think it's a really good contract. I'm at a point where I believe in the kid, and I want him as a long-term part of the future. But you give yourself some wiggle room there, so it's still a good contract at 3 years at 3.78. Matt Coronado is up next. This one is a lengthy one at $6.5 million a season. It is year one of a 7-year deal for Matt Coronado. I give this one I'll say B+ on this one as well. I think the kid's a really good goal scorer. I think he has obviously shown that part of his game. And when you are looking at skills that could deteriorate over 7 years, that shot's always going to be there, right? We're seeing that with Alex Ovechkin. Not that I think Coronado is going to be Ovechkin. Let's not clip this part. But for Coronado, that scoring touch is always going to be a thing, and that's going to age well with him. Also, he's going to be 29 at the end of this thing, so it's not like you're locking in Michael Backlund for 8 years or anything like that. This is a kid who has proven that he can do it at the NHL level, who has kind of grown through the ranks and shown his progression. 7 years, it just is a long time at 6.5 for a kid who has done it once. So that's why it's not just an absolute perfect home run. But I really like the deal. So I'm going to give a B+ for Matt Coronado's extension. We're at the forward groups here. So $4.38 million for 2 years with a modified no trade in the second year for Morgan Frost. I give that a B. A couple years for a guy who's 26 and is just kind of right around the fringes of maybe being a top 6 guy on your team. It makes sense. 4.38 is maybe a little bit more than I would want to pay given the question marks that surround him, but you also probably couldn't get away with paying him any less either. So, it makes sense. It doesn't feel like steal for the Flames or anything like that. It's just, it is a player that you think is probably going to be good, but if he's not in a couple of years, you have an out. So that makes sense, but it's a C+. The trade stuff, I think this league hands those out way too quickly. And I think you're seeing the Flames in a spot where maybe they've handed those out a bit too much with Kadri and with Coleman on those. And an 8-team one, it's not going to kill you, but that feels a bit much. So C+ is what I will give for Frost. And then we get to Kevin Ball. This one, again, locked in, 5.35 for 6 years. I like this one. I will give it a B. Again, the trade protection on it seems a little silly to me, but that is a fundamental issue I have with how teams hand out contracts in the NHL. But I think he has... I don't know why that changed like that. 1 second. There we go. Sorry. I think he has shown that he has the type of game that is going to age very well and is just going to be a rock solid type of a guy and feels like the type of player that you win with at playoff time, right? So I like the contract. I like the player a lot. I will give it a B. I think it's just a solid contract for the Flames there. So again, keep the questions coming in the chat and I will get to them as I can. But we do have a fantasy football question in the chat. So let's get into that part now. Also, I'm realizing that I didn't put the football animation, I don't think, in here. So the best we're going to have for it is Waiver Wire 1, and then we'll talk trades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Waiver wire picks still to come. Just wanted to get that in there to break things up a little bit. But fantasy football trade question in the chat going live on YouTube. Jay Smells asking, would you trade Kenneth Walker for Omarion Hampton? First blush, yes. Charbonnet, if I remember right, got more snaps or more opportunities than Kenneth Walker did in week 1 against San Francisco. So that would concern me greatly. Omarion Hampton, they were much more pass heavy than I think a lot of people were getting ready for with the LA Chargers. So this being like, oh, he's going to be the number 1 running back on a run heavy team. He's going to be the number 1 running back on a relatively balanced, but maybe a little bit more pass heavy team than we were expecting. But yes, I would trade Kenneth Walker away to acquire Omarion Hampton. I think that Hampton has a lot of upside. I think that this offense is going to learn how to use him a little bit more and incorporate him a little bit more as the year goes on. And he's going to get more and more comfortable with that group as well. Where on the Seattle side, I already have concerns about the offensive line. I have concerns now about the workload as well, and just the overall skill level of the offense. So if I can get out of that situation and into a good one, I am more than happy to. And honestly, if I'm on the Kenneth Walker side of that, moving him away, and the Omarion Hampton side wants a little bit more, I would happily throw in another like flex area wide receiver bench option or something like that. Like I would add to it to try to get that deal done. I think just at the very base of it, going from the Seattle offense and getting a piece of that to getting a piece of the Chargers offense is just something I would want to do in general. And trying to get out of the Kenneth Walker business might be the way to do that as well. And then getting into the Omarion Hampton one, it checks a lot of boxes there. So while I don't want to overreact to one game for Seattle, I do think that there is a bit of a concern that one guy is going to start to take over the opportunities there. And now we'll see, like Najee Harris could have a bit more of a role in the Chargers backfield, but I think for the ways that the Chargers are going to attack on a weekly basis, Hampton just fits the offensive type much more effectively. So yes, that is absolutely that is absolutely a player I would try to target here in fantasy football as we kind of roll along here. So keep the fantasy football questions coming in the chat. We have some regular NFL and then a bunch of fantasy football stuff still to come here on the live stream. And if you're watching this after, just look for all the videos here. We have different playlists for all the football, just for fantasy football. So check out all of that here on Couch Potato Diary. But now let's move to the football that we saw on Monday night. They certainly had a tough act to follow after the epic clash on Sunday Night Football. And it wasn't the game of the year, but it was a really fun game and a really important one for both sides. Let's break down what we saw on Monday Night Football. A lot of questions around JJ McCarthy after a full season of not playing in the NFL, and a lot of them after one half. But he answered at least some in the second half of a very, very entertaining come from behind win for the Minnesota Vikings to wrap up week 1 in the NFL. We had talked in the preseason about JJ McCarthy and how important he was. I said he is a player that can determine the season. He was players that can decide the year, swing player, whatever you want to call it. He is a guy that I think can swing this because I love this Vikings roster. I think they're very well coached on defense. I think they have a lot of talent on defense. I think they really locked in a couple good pieces on the offensive line, and they have a ton of skill for the kid to pass to. And if this kid is anything close to the quarterback play they got from a season ago, this team can win the Super Bowl. But if he's a disaster, there's very little that you can do to make up for that. And we kind of saw that in both halves, right? Like in the first half, it was rough. You could see the speed, it just took an extra. He would step back and it needs to go now, and it didn't, and now it's chaos. And he's doing somersaults out of the pocket and all that, right? Like it's becoming a problem. And then it looked like maybe he was getting it back on track, and we'll talk about how he did that in a second. Has a setback, pick six, brutal, but then make some really, really good throws. And you can see if this is the base that we're starting with this kid, with JJ McCarthy, Vikings fans should be really, really happy about where they are sitting right now with their starting quarterback. I thought like that fourth quarter, the big comeback, some major throws to Justin Jefferson, pushing the ball down the field, throwing it to your guy. I thought he was great in that. Obviously, throwing to Justin Jefferson, a lot of people are just going to say, oh, well, it's easy to do that. The way that the Bears were covering him, the pressure that they were bringing to the young quarterback as well, all of that suggested that it was going to be a bit of a difficult go, and he was still getting it in there. And even in tight coverage, he was still fitting it in. And that's where you feel very confident about this. It wasn't just, oh, hey, we did a swing pass to Justin Jefferson because we had him lined up out of the backfield, and we were able to execute that way and pick up some yards. And look at this, we just did a little draw play and a couple quick passes to TJ Hawkinson, and we were able to get first downs out of it. They were aggressively pushing the ball down the field and fitting them into tight windows. It is those types of throws that you want to see from a quarterback when you are looking for him to develop and looking for him to grow. And so, like I said, if this is the base, that's fantastic. The other one, I thought it was a perfect pass to Aaron Jones. As someone who owns Aaron Jones in fantasy, I obviously greatly appreciated it, but I thought it was a perfect pass to Aaron Jones. It does look like it's a little bit underthrown, like it doesn't hit him in stride. Jones has to come back to the ball, but when you look at it, you have the coverage underneath with the linebacker who was absolutely burned on the play, and you have a safety coming over the top. And I think if you lead Jones into the end zone there, it puts him in a position where the safety can come in and lay a big hit, and best case, just knocks the ball out. Worst case, ends up knocking Aaron Jones out of this game. And so he puts it in a spot where Jones can turn, protect himself if that hit is coming, but still be able to make a play and get into the end zone. So I thought maybe this is just me galaxy braining it because I want the kid to be good, but I thought it was a perfect pass and just exactly where he needed to put it. And obviously, like, he got better as the game went on, and you want to see that. You want to see him get more comfortable under the bright lights of Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. You want to see him get that kind of comfort in that situation. So I thought it was great. And it really kind of starts with the big throw that he makes at the end of the first half to get them into range for that 59-yard field goal. And that is where it's like, okay, we can take some of the shackles off of this offense, right? It's not just, like I said, that swing pass to Justin Jefferson. It is a dot on a crosser that puts us in field goal range in a very big moment. And it was from that point on where it felt like momentum was built. Right now, growing pains, we lose some of that momentum on a pick six, but overall, I think you have to be ecstatic from a Viking standpoint of where this kid is at and where the team's at. The defense had some issues at times. They were on the field quite a bit, but I still like how they were able to kind of clamp down on this in the second half and put themselves in a really, really good spot to win this football game. So the Vikings did nothing to slow down my thoughts on what I think is a really, really strong team. And so again, when I was talking about underrated teams in the NFL and the Vikings came up and someone commented on the YouTube video saying, Bears are going to beat the Vikings week 1. Where are you at now? Able to nail that one. And even if they hadn't, like, this doesn't mean the Bears are cooked. That doesn't mean the Vikings are cooked. There are not only 16 teams that can win the Super Bowl this year because they won in week 1. But I like when I'm right. I really do enjoy that. Check me out on social media for more modesty like that. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Check there for updates and clips from Couch Potato Diary. On the other side, talking about the excitement level you should have around the Minnesota Vikings, I don't know how you're not excited about what is happening with the Chicago Bears. I said coming into the year, I believe I took their under on the prediction show. I said that this is a team that could play better this year and still hit under on their win total. And losing the first week helps. But you look at so many different pieces of this football team, and there were improvements. And the biggest one, obviously, was at the quarterback spot. Caleb Williams looked like a different human being playing the position. I thought he looked exceptional in this game, especially in the first half. When things are breaking down, he is still showing that star quality. He's showing a high level of escapability. You would like to see him utilize that less, but He was showing high levels of escapability. He was making every throw you would want to see from him. I just thought, like, I watched that and thought, okay, this kid is getting close to what we thought he could be. And what we thought he should be at this point in his career. I was blown away by what I saw from Caleb Williams there. But you also saw other improvements as well. Like, coming out of the draft, a lot of the talk last year, a lot of talk, obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? But Malik Neighbors kind of steals the headlines there too. Roma Dunze was a forgotten man in a lot of this because he ended up as the number 3 receiver with the Bears last year, and the offense didn't click in the way that we thought it would. But that catch on the sideline and a couple other big ones as the game went on, this kid's going to break out this year. You can just see it, that there is another gear that he has found to his game as well. So a lot to be excited about for the Chicago Bears. And then the offensive line looked improved. It struggled as the game went on, so I'm not going to say the Bears now have a good offensive line or anything like that, but I don't think this is a line where, hey, we can send one extra rusher, it's going to screw you up entirely and blow up your entire offense. I don't think it's that anymore. I think this offense is going to give Caleb Williams enough time to be able to do something out there in the passing game. So, yes, they did struggle at times, but I like where they are at. And then defensively, I thought they looked pretty strong as well. Some really good pressure from the D-line early on in this game. They couldn't get the stops when they needed to late. So it is not as high level of a defense maybe as you would like with a team like the Bears. But overall, I think you have to feel very, very comfortable with where you are at with the Chicago Bears at this time. They just come away with a loss. But I liked a lot of what I saw from that game. And maybe it was Monday and I just wanted to feel like I was being optimistic about stuff, but I just think there are a lot of really good things that were happening in that game for two teams that are looking for, well, I guess for one team looking for a leveling up and another team that is looking to just get back to the level they were a year ago and maybe a touch above, that being the Minnesota Vikings. If you miss any of the streams or just want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, you can find us in podcast form. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. And if you are listening, thank you. Leave a review and hit that subscribe button. All those things really do help with Couch Potato Diary. So 1 week is now officially in the books in the NFL, and everyone is going to do the all right, overreaction time. Here we go. So today, this is just going to be, it's an overreaction check-in. It's just going to be a soft little, all right, where are our takes at after week 1? What am I reacting to? What am I maybe underreacting to? Let's go through that as we recap all of the takes coming out of week 1 in the NFL. 1 week of football is in the books, which means 1 week of confirmation bias or absolute panic. So today, I'm kind of breaking up a lot of the things that we saw from week number 1 in the NFL into 4 categories. We are going to look at I was dead wrong, the victory lap, die on this hill, and the jury's still out. And we'll see what happened from week 1 kind of falls into all of those categories. So not overreacting, maybe underreacting to a few things, and maybe actually overreacting to a few others. Let's start, you know what? I am a humble man. I can admit when mistakes have been made. So let's start with I was dead wrong. And I was dead wrong about the Los Angeles Chargers not having enough talent on the defensive side. They looked really good. Oh, that looked like a good football team. And I knew, I had it in my head that the Chargers threw the ball more as the season went on last year. And they have a really talented quarterback and some fun pieces to throw the football to. So I don't know why I wasn't quadrupling down on the LA Chargers as an offense to try to target in fantasy football, and why I was looking at them as a team that could go under their total. I think it happens in draft season all the time, and I think with prediction season now, you see one injury, and it's like, nope, staying away. It's because it feels like the decision's made for you, right? With Rashawn Slater going down with the injury, he's out for the season. Yes, they're moving a high-level option over to the left tackle in Joe Alt, but still, very worried, very, very worried. And then you look at it, it's like, well, nope, that offense is really good, and Justin Herbert is that guy. And then defensively, I do think they get the benefit of facing a Kansas City team that was already shorthanded and then like cut off their own pinky in that game. But this is a Chargers team that I was not giving enough credit to. And so I will admit, I was wrong. The next thing I was wrong about, the Carolina Panthers taking a step forward. That was bad. And maybe this should go into the jury's still out. I'm not. The Jags are not a team that should give you those kind of problems. And the Panthers, quite frankly, have not earned the benefit of the doubt in any way, shape, or form with that. So I am just going to admit right now that my thought that Carolina was going to take a step forward this year is probably incorrect. And you once again have questions around the quarterback with Bryce Young and some of the options that are around him and the zero talent that they have on the defensive side, with the exception of Horn as a very solid defensive back. But yes, I am admitting I was wrong on Carolina. The next thing I was wrong about, the Giants offense can step up with Russell Wilson. That was incorrect. That looked so bad on Sunday against Washington. Now, the Commanders had a good defense last year. They're a well-coached defense, although, as I've said before, the pieces don't necessarily look championship caliber, but they do a good job of getting the most out of everyone there. But still, this was on the Giants. Russell Wilson had no time. The offensive line is bad. And that's, I think, where a lot of the problems stem from, is the offensive line is not good. And you have a Russell Wilson who is not exactly an escape artist right now. And then when he gets free, there's exactly one receiver you trust, but it's one receiver that everyone on the other team is going to be focusing on and locking in on as well. So my thought that this elite level defense that I think the Giants could have, which I'm kind of right on, but they are going to be enough to be able to hold this offense in games and let an improved offense step up. I don't think that's going to be the case. I have very, very real concerns about what we saw from the Giants there. So I was wrong on New York. My next team and call, I guess, that I was wrong on, the Arizona Cardinals to win the NFC West. I fall for it every year, and I know I shouldn't, but I do. You see, you see the talent of Kyler Murray, right? You see everything he can do with the scrambling, with the throws, with the ad-libbing and everything like that, and you just see enough plays that it's like, this is a guy. This is a guy that can do this. That you got your guy at quarterback, and then you see two-headed rushing attack with Benson and with Connor. Like them both. That's good. Trey McBride, one of the top 3 tight ends in the National Football League. Fantastic. And Marvin Harrison Jr. Have you seen the biceps on the kid? Everything's great. And then they add one player on defense. I'm like, hey, look, they had no good players on defense a couple years ago. Now they have 2. Watch out for Arizona. And then you watch it in practice. And yes, they win against New Orleans, but they looked like the 4th best team in the NFC West in week number 1. That could change, but I don't think it's going to change enough to get me to the call of Cardinals winning the NFC West. So that one I was wrong on. And the last one that I was wrong about, the Denver Broncos leveling up. Now, this one I take a little bit of joy in because I thought they were wildly overrated last year, and then they all played really well. And as a Raider fan, having to gush about the Denver Broncos can get a little bit annoying. The defense is still really, really good. I think that is obvious. I do also think it's pretty obvious that this offense may not take a step forward. And again, this is one that I don't know why I didn't see. Because, you like the defense a lot. And it's Sean Payton, and he's a really good coach. But I was saying, Bo Nix, yes, it was a great year last year. That's his ceiling. That's kind of where he is. I don't think because the kid played a million games in college, we're not going to get this grand development from him. He kind of is what he is. And then you see the offseason, Mims is a speed receiver. And Cortland Sutton, he's not really a number 1, but on that team, he's a solid guy. And you talk yourself into all the things that they have. But then you look, the backfield is pretty meh. They have a couple number 2s. That's great. And an offensive line that maybe still has some issues on it. So I overestimated the amount that the Broncos could step up in 2025. And I feel good saying that even after just 1 week. So that is the last thing I was wrong about. Up next, now I get to brag a little bit. Now it's the victory lap. Here are the takes that I feel really good about coming out of week number one. And the first one, the Eagles as a high-level football team. This one seems pretty obvious, and this was not a unique one to me, saying that the defending Super Bowl champions were going to look like the defending Super Bowl champions. But I know Hurts wasn't throwing the ball downfield a lot. I thought he looked really good with his legs and his decision-making. Saquon looked like a beast. And the defense, it didn't look as dominant as it should against the Cowboys, but they were still able to get a bunch of big stops late without their big dude at the defensive line with Jalen Carter. So feeling pretty good about that. Coming off a Monday night, I feel really good about the Vikings being a real threat in the NFC. I love the roster, how they've been able to build around JJ McCarthy, and you see the throws that McCarthy was able to make in week number 1 and see how he was able to push forward and get that team a come-from-behind win using his legs as well, spreading the ball out to some very good weapons that they have. I feel great about the call that the Minnesota Vikings are a real threat. The next one on my victory lap. The New England Patriots are not title contenders. I feel good about that. I had said this was going to be an improved group, but maybe not to the levels that everyone else was talking about. And then you see it in week 1. Drake May looked fine, but you hear Bill Simmons talking about he's concerned, and he is very glowing about his kid at quarterback in New England. But they don't have the weapons for him to throw to. The offensive line is going to be improved, and it's going to improve as the year goes on, but not to the point where this is going to be a title contender like a lot of people were saying. So, victory lap on the New England Patriots not being the title contenders that everyone thought they were going to be. Evan Zangle, I hope I'm saying that right, in the chat, is saying, should I trade for Justin Jefferson? If you could, yes, in fantasy, 100%, try to trade for Justin Jefferson. He had a really good game on Monday Night Football, so I would be surprised if the Jefferson owner is looking to move him at this point. But yes, if you can, try to trade for that kid. Because I think he's the most talented receiver in football. And I think that he has a quarterback that is going to be able to get him the ball in some good spots as the season goes on. So 100% Justin Jefferson, a solid play there if you can pull that off. Next victory lap that I am taking. Tampa Bay Bucks. Still the team to beat in the NFC South. Maybe some talk about the development of the Atlanta Falcons, or maybe, hey, Leonard Cohen, maybe a fall off here. But you look at the throws Baker Mayfield is making. You look at the level that Ibuka looks like he is at already. This is still a really solid team. So I feel good about that take early on. Next one. The Dolphins suck. This is pretty clear. And again, this was not a unique one, but this is one that after week number 1, I feel pretty good about locking in. Now, I don't think it's the Rex Ryan thing that he was talking about on, Get Up, saying that, oh, that's a Dolphins team that quit on their coach. That seems pretty obvious that that's a dude who's trying to get another coaching job in the NFL, right? So, I didn't see that as a team that quit on their coach. There are some talented pieces on that team, but I think people are overestimating the talent of the roster there. And I think the big problem is at quarterback. Like I said, they coach like they're scared of their quarterback. And then the defense is on the field too much, and they just get obliterated. So my thought that the Dolphins would suck. And you know what? Let's lump a couple teams in here just so this segment isn't a full 3 hours. The other one is the Saints are terrible as well. Again, these were ones that people thought, but we're talking about things that I liked and things that I was right about. And they are. They are just so bad at the sport of football. So, Dolphins, Saints being bad. Looks like that was a right call after week number 1. Next one. The Cincinnati Bengals will regress. Obviously, Joe Burrow is very good. Obviously, Jamar Chase is very good. Obviously, T. Higgins and Chase Brown are quite good. But the offensive line is bad. And the defense isn't good at all. They got 2 gifts of interceptions last week against the Cleveland Browns. So I just thought in the preseason, and I feel it now as well, banking on a historic level of offense 2 years in a row just seems like you are whistling past the graveyard. So I feel right about that. The offensive line could not protect Joe Burrow in week 1. The defense, they were able to limit one of the worst offenses in football. Congrats. But I don't see it. And I feel pretty good about thinking that there is more regression coming for the Cincinnati Bengals. On to that next one. The Detroit Lions also take a step back. We were worried about the offensive line with Ragnow going down. Offensive line was a problem in week number 1. We were worried about the offense in general with the loss of Ben Johnson. Offense looked a little bit blah in week number 1. We were worried about Jared Goff having to make up for all of those problems, and he did not. You just look at everything that happened with Detroit this offseason, and to assume that they were going to get back to a high level of football was just pie in the sky thought. They got dominated. Now, they got dominated by a great team, and we'll talk about them. You know what? We'll lump them in right now. Not just Lions take a step back, but also Packers take a step forward. Packers were dominant. And yes, to say the Lions are taking a step back because they got dominated by a high-level football team, that feels maybe unfair. But you just watch the game, and it was all the problems that you thought were going to be there for the Lions, all the ways that you thought the Packers were going to be able to step up, and it all lined up. So I think that you feel really good about both of those takes right now. Packers stepping up, Lions stepping back. Next one. Texans' offensive line is a problem. CJ Stroud's great. He's a very talented quarterback. Nico Collins, incredibly talented wide receiver. That offensive line gives them no chance. Absolutely no chance. Now, the Rams defense looks like it's going to be good, but that offensive line does not give the Texans a chance to really exploit the talent that they have on the offensive side. The defense was phenomenal in this game. So this is still going to be a team that wins more than they lose, probably. They're going to be tested in this division, I think, a little bit more than people expect. They're still the best team in this division, but I have concerns about the offensive line, and I feel right about that after week number 1. A couple more here in the I was right category. It's the Bills and the Ravens, and they're both insanely good. This isn't, don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. Two teams that we thought were the upper echelon in the NFL, and they proved that they are in the top tier in the NFL. Some teams that we thought were maybe up there took a bit of a step back. These guys did not, so that is one for the victory lap. And then last one, Caleb Williams looks improved. Now, I didn't say this to the point of picking the Bears as any kind of a playoff team, or maybe even doubling down on Williams as a fantasy football option, but I was saying that this is a guy who's going to take a step, and maybe some of the hate on him was going a little bit too far. And you watched that game on Monday night, and hot damn, he looked really good. So, Caleb Williams improving, while the team maybe doesn't win every game, locks in as my final trip on the victory lap. Going to get to what hills I'm going to die on with my takes, and what the jury might still be out on in just a little bit. But if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and the notification bell so you never miss a video from Couch Potato Diary. Let's go now to the next category. I'm going to die on this hill. Up first, the Chiefs. I still think this offense is going to take a step forward this year. I still think that this is going to be an offense that looks improved from a season ago. And I still think that this is going to be a Chiefs team that more resembles what they were a couple of years ago than last year's dink and dunk team. It didn't look like it in week number 1 because it looked like they were a weapon short. The big part of the take was Rashee Rice is a number 1 receiver. Now, he's not going to be there for 6 weeks. I don't think the Chiefs go 0-6 in that time, although you don't feel great about them going into next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. But I still think with Rice there as a number 1, we'll see what's going on with Worthy. I feel like he is a legit number 2. Hollywood Brown is a fine number 3 at that point, right? Like everything just kind of fits. They weren't there for the Chiefs against the Chargers, but this is still a hill I'm going to die on, is that this is going to be an improved offensive season for the Kansas City Chiefs. Up next, you probably knew this was coming if you have been following my content throughout the preseason and even yesterday. Everything around the Steelers and Jets, I'm still going to lock in on. I still think I would rather have Justin Fields as my quarterback than Aaron Rodgers in the year of our football gods 2025. I still think that Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Braylon Allen are getting slept on as weapons for an offensive football team. And I still think Aaron Glenn as a coach with the New York Jets is enough to get this team at least on the in the hunt graphic on the right side when we're into playoff time. On the opposite end, I still think Aaron Rodgers is a problem. I still think that he is an ineffective quarterback, and I still don't think that this is going to be a grand celebration for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I am dying on this hill that the swap that was made here in the offseason is still going to benefit the Jets more than it does the Steelers. The next one that I am just planting my flag on is the Commanders are still going to take a bit of a step back this year. I just think we saw that the Jets or the Giants, sorry, are really bad. Not that the Commanders are still this good football team. It was a very close game until very late when Deebo Samuel takes that drag for a touchdown. I think that the same kind of things that came up for the Texans, maybe not all of them, because the offensive line is okay, but Jaden Daniels with an extra year of tape, and with the defense, I think, overachieving in year one. I think that's the biggest thing. I think Jaden Daniels is awesome, but you have this weird situation with Terry McLaurin all offseason. You bail on your number one running back, and everyone else looked fine in the run game. There's just enough there that it's like, ugh. But the defense, I feel like, really played over their skis a year ago. You combine that with even just a little bit less effectiveness on fourth down, and I still think this is a Commanders team that takes a step back. It just didn't look like it against the New York Giants. Next one. The Dallas Cowboys aren't very good. I don't think this is a talented football team. Yes, they only lost to the Philadelphia Eagles by 4 points. That is good for them. Congratulations. I still, when you look at this roster, without Micah Parsons, they weren't able to rush the passer. They really had to sell out to bring a lot of pressure there. They weren't able to stop the run until they just absolutely loaded up the box. And at the times where Jalen Hurts was passing, they didn't defend it all that well either. And you have two running backs who really benefited from not having to deal with Jalen Carter. And I thought Dak Prescott looked really good, and all of that still wasn't enough to win this game. So I still, while they looked better than I thought they would, I still don't think this is a good football team this season for the Dallas Cowboys. My next hill, the Rams taking a step back. That defense looks very good, and it is why they're a little bit further down on the hill. Like, maybe this isn't a hill I'm willing to die on, but it is one I'm willing to at least take a shot or two on before I have to run away. The defense is good, and that gives me the concern. The issue that I think they are going to have are all the back problems that Matthew Stafford had. I can't imagine a 37-year-old quarterback dealt with back problems the entirety of training camp with the exception of a week, and now is just going to roll 17 in a row, perfectly healthy and fine. And Jimmy Garoppolo is a name we know. That's not a viable solution as a backup quarterback in what looks like it's going to be now a competitive division in the NFC. So I will still die on this hill that the Rams are going to fall back. It might take a little bit longer than I thought. And the last one, the hill I'm going to die on, is that the Bears defense is going to be a strong unit this year. It looked like it for a half. It didn't look like it for the second half. So that's why this isn't going into the victory lap or anything, because they still give up a come-from-behind win against a quarterback making his first start. So it's a bit of a ooh moment there for that one. But I still think that this defense is going to be a strong unit and is going to be able to keep them in some of these games. Last category, the jury is still out on these ones, where it looks like maybe I'm wrong, and I might actually be wrong, but we're just going to wait and see on these. And some of them, it's like, maybe I was right, but I'm not going to say I was right, so let's see. Up first, it's just going to lump a few of these teams in here. Are the Colts, Jags, and Raiders actually improved? You can't really take a whole lot from the Colts because they played the Dolphins. You can't take a whole lot from the Jags because they played the Panthers. And I don't think you can take a lot from the Raiders because we don't know what the Patriots are yet. But they all at least showed signs of being better or improved this year. And for the Jags, I think they're the easiest to buy because people thought there could be some growth coming for this team anyway. The Colts, I don't see it at all. I just think they got the benefit of playing the Miami Dolphins. And the Raiders one is interesting because they were able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that's going to be where they shine. And the offensive line looked pretty good, and it gave Geno Smith some time to dart quite a few passes. But the big weakness of this team, the secondary for the Raiders, that is not a Patriots team that is designed to beat you in that way. So I don't know if we can get that read on the Raiders after 1 week. And look, I mean, a lot of these you can't really get the read on 1 week, but this is a fun way to kind of go through all of it. But the two areas I was most concerned by, the secondary, okay, so they're able to lock down Stephon Diggs and Demario Douglas. Sweet. The offensive line, with the injuries that the Patriots were dealing with and everything, I don't know if that's a great test for it either. So the jury's still out on these three teams. Next, the Seattle Seahawks struggles. I said coming into the year that this was going to be a team that had a bad season. I thought the change at quarterback was a significant downgrade with Geno Smith to Sam Darnold. I felt like you sent out a lot of weapons on offense, and yes, JSN looks really good, but after that, like Cooper Kupp, and the offensive line isn't very good. The thing that I didn't account for is that defense is young and leveling up, and they did against the San Francisco 49ers. So maybe they don't struggle as bad as I thought they would because that defense keeps them in a lot of games. So the jury's still out on the Seattle Seahawks. Up next, the Tennessee Titans won't be that bad. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about the Titans this preseason, but I thought that this was going to be a team that would show a few signs and maybe surprise a few people. With Cam Ward, with Pollard and Ridley, like that's all right. And they got some vets on the defensive side that are going to help them out. On the offense, it looked worse than I thought, specifically the offensive line. But you're facing a really good Broncos defense, so who's to say? And then defensively, it looked really strong. Simmons was great right up until a really bad penalty late in that game. But again, we talked about the Broncos earlier. I have some concerns about that team and what they are actually going to look like. So because of the difficulty and lack of difficulty all in the same matchup, it was a really tough one to get a read on. So the jury is still out on the Titans. Last one. The Bears found their way into, I think, all of these, but the jury is still out on the Bears' offensive line and if they're an issue or not. I said that they made improvements in the offensive line in the offseason, and that was going to help this offense grow. The offense grew, and for a half, the offensive line looked great. But then Minnesota was able to get a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams in the second half and cause quite a few problems. So I don't know if this is an improved offensive line or it's going to be one that allows this offense to really reach its full potential in year 2 of Caleb Williams and year 1 of Ben Johnson. But there you go. Instead of overreacting, we were just pacing everything out with the football takes here today. Let me know what were you absolutely right about? What were you absolutely wrong about? And what are we going to wait and see going into week number 2 in the NFL? Let me know either in the chat live or in the comments after the fact. Again, we are streaming this live on a few different platforms. The next live stream for me is going to be a video game stream. That one, keep it locked on my social medias. Might do one later this afternoon, but definitely doing one tomorrow at 10 a.m. Going to be going live with a video game stream there. The next, that's going to be on Twitch, by the way, twitch.tv/primetimepk. If you are looking for the next podcast, that is going to be Thursday. We're going to do the Thursday and Friday podcast. We're doing Tuesday, Wednesday here today on the live stream. So that is what's coming up next, stream-wise, for Couch Potato Diary. All right, week 1, officially in the books in the National Football League and in fantasy football. It's time to adjust. We race to the waiver wire to see who can either strengthen the strong teams that we have or bail us out from disaster 1 week into the year. Let's look at the fantasy football waiver wire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Week number 2's waiver wire. This is a very important time. Always, you can't win your league at the draft. You got to make the smart moves on the waiver wire to help you get through. So if you have any fantasy football questions, fire them away in any chat that you are tuning into this for today, and we will kind of rock on and answer all of those. We got fantasy football stuff coming up here over the next couple of segments, so fire them away in the chat. Up first, we are going to go at quarterback. The first waiver wire. To qualify for this, normally it is under 35%. I had to stretch it to 40% because of the running back situation. But for the most part, under 35% is what we are looking for, which means Michael Penix at 32% owned is something we're looking at. I do think that they're going to be facing a strong Minnesota defense this week, but Penix looked really good last week, spreading the ball around, using his legs, attacking that defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that I think is relatively solid. I don't think it's as good as Minnesota's is, but I think it's pretty solid. So I think that this is a player that you should be looking at. And even if week number 2 doesn't go very well, I think Penix is probably going to be a viable option as a QB going forward. So maybe one that even if it doesn't work out next week is a stash on your bench to see how he kind of progresses as the year goes on. The next one is a kid who we kind of talked down a little bit in some of our other NFL talk here, but it's Bryce Young. He's 24% owned. I don't love how he looked in week 1 against Jacksonville, but I think it's a good matchup against Arizona, who had their issues with New Orleans, which is the worst offense in football. So I think Bryce Young, based on the matchup, still has an opportunity to get you a few fantasy points if you are looking for a quarterback this early in the season. Let's go to wide receiver. Up first is Cedric Tillman, 28% owned. He had 8 targets last week. They're facing Baltimore. It probably won't be the same type of a shootout that Baltimore was in last week, but still, Ravens gave up a bit in the passing game to Josh Allen, who is not Joe Flacco, but still, there are some options there. And Cedric Tillman, I think that 8 targets, that's going to be something that's pretty consistent going forward. Maybe this next one's the better option. 25% owned Joshua Palmer with Buffalo. 9 targets last week, going up against the Jets this week, who, while I'm still going to hold strong that I think they're a decent football team, that defense had some coverage breakdowns against Aaron Rodgers. And it's one thing to give up 4 passing touchdowns to Aaron Rodgers. Now they're playing Josh Allen. And so with Allen throwing the ball to Joshua Palmer, I think, again, even if this isn't the big week, that is a player that I want on my team in medium to deep leagues in fantasy football. And then lastly, Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas at 16% owned. He had a rough week against the Raiders, but he gets a touchdown to save the day, relatively okay target volume, and he's facing Miami, who made Daniel Jones look like Peyton Manning in week 1. So Miami, for the time being, is going to be a, oh my God, we're playing them this week, start everybody. That's going to be something that we look at, I think, going forward. And that is one we're going to try to take advantage of this week with Demario Douglas. Up next is Trey Benson with the running back spot now. And this is where we had to stretch it. The running back market is scarce this week. And so we had to make the adjustment. Trey Benson, 39% owned. So 8 carries, 1 reception, going up against a Carolina defense that wasn't awesome a week ago. It's a slower running back market if he is still available in your league. I think he is going to get good volume throughout the year. Like, we're going to be looking at 10 to 15 touches, I think, for the most part this season on an offense that should still do pretty well. So I like this as a season-long type of a play also. Up next at running back is Roschon Johnson. Again, kind of speaking to the lack of depth in the free agent market in fantasy football this week. Roschon Johnson, 7% owned. He didn't play this week, but Monangai didn't do a whole lot against Minnesota. Swift looked good, but I don't think that they are going to just go with one running back this year. And I think Roschon Johnson is going to get into a few more of these games and a few more of these plays when he is healthy. We will see about his health status, but wouldn't be a bad pickup here in week number 2. Let's go to tight end. And the number 1, this might be one of the better pickups of the week. It's Juwan Johnson with New Orleans. 1% owned as a tight end. He had 11 targets last week. He is one of the best pass catchers on a bad offense, so why not? It's a tough matchup against San Francisco. It's a tough offense to be a part of, so don't watch the games, but just watch as the fantasy points rack up for Juwan Johnson this week, as I think that volume is really going to help him out as a tight end as the year goes on. And the next one is kind of a I can't quit you guy. It's Chigakonkwo with the Tennessee Titans. 35% owned. Quieter week 1. That Denver defense is really strong. So I think better days are ahead for the hulking tight end with the Tennessee Titans. For a streaming defense this week, there's a couple of them. I would go the main one, the New England Patriots. Their defense at 14% owned, facing Miami, who looked like a disaster in week number 1. That's an offense I want to have my defense playing against. So lock that one in. And then the next one is the LA Rams at 29% owned. It's a good matchup against the young Tennessee Titans team. So I like the Rams in that spot as your streaming defense for week number 2. But any other fantasy football thoughts, let me know in the comments or in the chat as we roll along with the show here today, or again, watching it after the fact. Also, if you want to help support Couch Potato Diary, you can do so with the tip jar. There's links to it in every bit of content with Couch Potato Diary, and there's a panel on Kick and Twitch for you guys there. It would really mean a lot to help out the show in that way and provide a lot of support. I understand times are what they are. Not everyone can afford that sort of a thing. Just watching is all the support I could have ever imagined. I really do appreciate that. But if there is a little bit more you can do on the financial side, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Or for those watching on Twitch, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe button. It's September, I believe, with Twitch. So let's try to see if we can get that number up a little bit and just help me out so we can make a little bit more of this more regularly going forward here with Couch Potato Diary. So those were the fantasy football guys who could be stars, I guess, in the upcoming week. But each week on Couch Potato Diary, I like to look at the guys who cast away. One man's trash is another man's fantasy treasure. So let's look at the guys who were cast aside as garbage into the fantasy dumpster and turned out to be fantasy football darlings for week number 1. Here's how the Dumpster Darlings work. I look at the top performing players who were the least owned in fantasy football for the week, and we see just how cruel this game that we play can be when we see how some lesser owned players jump up into the spotlight and pick up wins. So up first, we have Daniel Jones, quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, thrown aside by the New York Giants into the actual NFL dumpster, and the fantasy won it well as well. Just 5% owned, 29.48 fantasy points. Our wide receiver for the LA Chargers, Quentin Johnston, a forgotten about receiver in the Chargers offense, and certainly more forgotten about when Keenan Allen was signed. Fantasy football teams cast him aside to the point of only being 9% owned. Instead, this week, 22.4 fantasy points. Our wide receiver number 2, Calvin Austin of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2% owned. So forgettable that the Jets forgot to cover him, and he goes through with 15 fantasy points. Moving to the running back spot. Admittedly, our dumpster darlings were trash in running back this week. Trey Benson is up first, 39% owned. That's barely trash, but we're going to roll with it anyway. He had 8 fantasy points. Next, we're balancing it off. Raheem Sanders, owned in as many fantasy leagues as I am. 0% owned from Yahoo. The Cleveland Browns running back comes away with 6.3, very frustrating fantasy points. Up next is our tight end. We talked about him as a waiver wire pickup. Apparently you should have done that going into week number 1. Jawan Johnson, just 1% owned with New Orleans, comes out with 11.6 fantasy points. In our flex spot, it is Hollywood Brown, 25% owned, 14.9 fantasy points for the week. We go to the kicker spot. This kicker, the number 1 scoring kicker on the week, 1% owned. Why are we still doing kickers in fantasy football? I don't know. But Spencer Schrader gets it with, again, 1% with the Colts at 16 points. And finally, we're doubling up. The Colts stack you knew you needed was the kicker and the defense. 1% owned going up against Miami. They picked up 13 fantasy points, which means that all of these players, which aside from Trey Benson, no one more than 25% owned, put together a fantasy football season or a fantasy football week like no other. I was adding it up on the calculator and then it went away, so we'll get it in post. But still, a big scoring update for this, or a big scoring put out for the Dumpster Darlings this week. That is the fantasy football talk here today. Toxic in the chat. Some of these players would have gotten you an extra point for the win. Yes, no, I'm aware. I'm aware, Toxic. Thanks for that. Yes, for those of you who are unaware, we do the Vampire League with friends of the Twitch channel, and I am the vampire this year. Was last year. It's my league. I like doing the vampire thing. It's fun. But I end up losing to Gino by just 1 point, and basically all of those would have helped me out in all of that. So, yeah, that's... Thanks for the reminder there, Toxic. Appreciate it. Arjun in the YouTube chat saying, "Hey, bro, I have a question for fantasy." All right, fire away. I I can stall, I can tap dance. We can wait for that before we get into some more of the NHL preview for the upcoming season. Still have some of that. Also, want to remind you guys here on the stream that we are going to be streaming 2 podcasts today, recording the one for Tuesday and then recording Wednesday's podcast as well. And for those of you who are listening, just know that you can watch these live when you go into my YouTube, Twitch, or on Kick. Also, we have Jay Smells, who is coming in saying, do you think I could upgrade my running back with a Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker trade for the upgrade? I think you absolutely could. Yeah, Jay Smells. Like we talked about before, about you going for a Marion Hampton with Kenneth Walker. I think maybe Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker for Hampton, that might be a little bit rich, given the unproven nature, I guess, of O'Marion Hampton. So that you might want to go with Walker and a lesser running back there. But I think you could aim pretty high running back wise if you are going with a Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker trade. Here, let's look. Let's just pull up some guys and let's take a look at where some of these dudes could wind up here. I don't like that one. Let's go. Pro, sorry, trying to stall, trying to get us here. But one sec, let's pull this up. I'll get out of here. And let's go to... Why can't I just rankings? There we go. Yes. Let's go rest of the season ranks. So let's see. We are looking for, where is Garrett Wilson on this list? Right now, Fantasy Pros has Garrett Wilson for the rest of the season ranked 30th. And we want to be throwing in a Kenneth Walker to help out with this trade, to help upgrade our running back room. So Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker, could you maybe go out and maybe take advantage of a panicking Chase Brown owner? I think you could do that. I think, man, Devon Achane, I have real worries about that whole team, so I would just not go there. But that's kind of around where you could go. Bucky Irving as well, and maybe you catch the Josh Jacobs owner on a good day and are able to upgrade there. So I think those are some of the running backs that you could kind of look at targeting here if you are looking to make that move in upgrading from Kenneth Walker and throwing Garrett Wilson in there for that as well. A couple others, like maybe I can't imagine the James Cook owner is going to be all that stoked about maybe making that trade as well. Like Breece Hall, but then we're getting into like I would want Hall and something from that. Same thing, like you could go Hampton and with that kind of a trade, but we're in kind of the right market there. I would say Jay Smells for that. Back to Arjun in the chat. My wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, and Travis Hunter, and DJ Moore. I got offered a 2-for-1 for DJ. It would be Myers, Ridley, White, Ferguson, Shaheed, or Myers or Ridley, and someone said above. All right, so we are looking to... We got an offer for DJ Moore, and looking to make a move like for Myers or Ridley. Like we're building up some depth here. Myers, I have a few worries about. I guess, you know, like he is the number 1 wide receiver on a Raiders team that looked a little bit better than we thought they would. Ridley is going to take some time, but again, he is going to get options. So there's a bit there. I'm assuming that the White is that Rachaad White that we're looking at for the running back. So maybe if you want to do that, like, I don't know what the rest of the team is like, but you are set at wide receiver. I will say that with CeeDee, with Garrett, and with Travis Hunter. So if we want to use DJ Moore to expand the depth, then a Myers-Ridley trade, I don't hate that. Like you can. Like if that's what you're looking to do, just add a bit more depth, then fine. Otherwise, I would just keep DJ Moore in that spot. But if we're looking to maybe a slight downgrade at wide receiver, while also adding either a tight end or a running back, I think that's a fine move. But I think, I don't know if any of those are upgrades enough that I would be moving on from DJ Moore. Well, I will say that. But if you are looking to add more depth, then you can. But I think right now what you have is very, very solid. And unless we're improving other spots, I don't know if I want to be trying to make 4 quarters equal $1 on that. I liked how Chicago's offense looked. I think DJ Moore is going to be a big part of that. And so I think there's going to be a lot of upgrades here moving forward for him. So if you want to improve a couple other positions, go for it. If we're just looking at some depth pieces, I think you're probably okay with just this and then playing the waiver wire as needed. So that would be kind of my suggestion with that for the fantasy football conversation. So keep the chats coming. We will absolutely keep talking fantasy football as long as you guys want to. I am going to pivot, talk some hockey, but throw anything you want into the chat. And when I have an opportunity to, I absolutely will get there. Arjun saying, I just got scared of DJ after yesterday. I think better days are ahead for that offense and for DJ Moore. Like, I get that, like, Rome looked all right and everything there, but I think Caleb Williams is going to be really good. And I think Minnesota's defense is really good. So I think better days are going to be ahead for DJ Moore. So personally, I would hold off. I think he's a talented wide receiver, and I think that there is a very good opportunity to actually get a lot of value out of that. And for other people, I would try to trade for DJ Moore. I would try to take advantage of the worried DJ Moore owner in your league. Croc Papa on Twitch saying, should I trade Jamar Chase for CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill? Boy, that's a good one. That's a really good one, because that is, like, it's 3 offenses that I am worried about. Boy, I still, like, Chase is so good. But Lamb is right there. I know people are on Lamb. I think I would probably do that. That is one where I think you are getting, like, with Chase, that's a high draft pick, right? But CeeDee Lamb was also right around the first round, and then Tyreek Hill was a 3rd, 4th round guy. And so if you can accept the issues that Tyreek Hill has as a human being and have him on your fantasy team, then go nuts. I think that it is a fine trade to be making. If you want to hold on to the number 1 wide receiver going in a lot of fantasy drafts after 1 week, I wouldn't blame you. But I think you are getting close enough with CD and then Tyreek Hill, and just fingers crossed every week that Tyreek Hill gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs is basically what we're hoping for with that one. But I think there's a lot of upside in the move that you are making there for sure. And honestly, like, if we're looking at that, if you just want out of Chase because you're worried about how the Bengals offense looked last week, no problem here. Don't blame you at all. I would maybe try to go a different way. I think you could try to get CeeDee Lamb maybe at 75, 80 cents on the dollar, right? You have, like, he had the spotlight game on Thursday night, and everyone was talking about the drops that he had after. And so you could maybe get the panicked CeeDee Lamb owner, throw him a couple lesser guys, and see, like, hey, do you just want out of this? You worried about what you saw there? We can build it up, just get out of there right away. And then all of a sudden you have Chase and Lamb as a very good wide receiver combo that you can dominate leagues with. So that would be kind of the other way I would look at that one. But if you absolutely are just wanting out of the Chase business, giver. But I still think he's good enough that he's going to be able to survive some of the struggles that are happening in Cincinnati for this season. And Tyreek Hill is just not a guy I want to cheer for, but that's just personal taste more than anything. But loving the fantasy football conversation in here today. Arjun messaging back, thank you. I'm a hold off for now. Hold off too. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that is probably the way for sure there. And Croc Papa in Twitch saying, okay, thanks. So yeah, hey, thank you guys. This was fun. For those who don't know, I hosted a fantasy football show on the radio out here in Calgary for a few years. And we would always plan out our week like, hey, we're going to talk about this game, whatever. And it would end up being just 2 hours of people texting in, asking fantasy football questions and answering them. So this format, love it. Could do it all day. Absolutely love the questions that are coming in. And so I'm worried about jumping to hockey now if anyone else has any more stuff. But I promise, if you put something in the chat, even if we're not talking about it in that segment, I can pivot and we can get right back into it. So we will get to more fantasy football stuff if it comes up. And for people watching the live stream, there is more football still to come when we get into the Wednesday podcast. But for now, we are going to move into the world of hockey as we get ready for the 2025-2026 NHL season. The Calgary Flames have already locked in their goalie of the future, so things are moving fast. But it is always good to just take a step back and see, what can we learn from predictions that we made 365 days ago? It is the NHL accountability segment as we get ready for the 25-26 season, looking back to the calls we made in 24-25. looking at the predictions that I made going into the 24-25 NHL season to see what we can learn coming out of it. Let's start. Not going to go through every team. I kind of like just going through who we picked as overvalued and undervalued. So let's do that. Let's start with the overvalued. And the first one was a big swing and a miss. I had the Calgary Flames as my most overvalued team in the NHL at 80.5 points. Maybe missed on that one. That maybe was a tactical error on my behalf. Oops. Because they came within an eyelash of making it into the postseason last year. Had the most points that any team has ever had while not making the playoffs. They were great. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, haven't looked at the totals yet, probably going under on the Flames this year and just not thinking that magic can happen a couple years in a row. Up next, Pittsburgh Penguins. Their total was 90.5. That is a lock as an under. And so we nailed that one with the under. Very happy about that. Thought Tampa Bay was overvalued at 98.5. Oops. I really thought there was going to be a fall off from Stamkos and to Gensel. There wasn't. That team looked really good in the regular season, but gets bounced in the playoffs. I was ready for the fall off in Washington as well, and that didn't happen. I had them under 89.5, and they went off and won their division in a historic season for them. Nailed this one, though. San Jose, under 64.5. Wrapped that one up early as they finished with 52 points this year. So feel good about that. Let's go to the teams that I thought were undervalued. The first one's a loss, and it's a frustrating one. I had Carolina as an undervalued team with their total of 100.5 points. They finished with 99. We couldn't get one more win at any point in there. Hey, but I still feel good about that call. Dallas as an undervalued team at 103.5. Nailed that one. I don't know if I thought that they would get there by trading for one of the best players in the sport in Mikko Rantanen, but still able to crush that. Feel pretty good about it. This call was the most profitable one that we had last season. It was Montreal hitting at over 76.5. We had them to make the playoffs, and they were able to find their way home with that, with an exciting young core, and one that I'm excited about going into next year as well. Another loss, though, was Seattle. Thought that they could take a bit of a step at 87.5, and thought Winnipeg could get there with 95.5, and they end up winning the President's Trophy. So nailed it on a few, didn't on a couple others as well. Looks like we went 500 on overvalued and undervalued from a season ago. So what lessons can we take from this? I do think overreacting to off-season moves. I mean, you look at last year, the winners of the offseason were the Nashville Predators, and that didn't go well. And then I was wrong on Tampa Bay, thinking that because there was a fall off there from Stamkos, got that one wrong, and thought that positively Seattle was going to get a bump from some of the kids, some of the guys that they brought in the offseason to help them take a step forward. So try to not look at where they okay, well, this team rocketed up a lot because of free agents. Let's look at the overall quality of these hockey teams instead of just as a net gain or loss off of the preseason. And the Montreal one was just recognizing the talent that is there, seeing how teams can break out, and recognizing that they had all of those pieces. So looking forward to putting all these lists together again for the 2025-26 season. Again, a reminder that if you want that energy to get through your gaming session or whatever, you can head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Let's go now to the next part of the NHL preview. The offseason was a very quiet one, not a whole lot of moves. But that doesn't mean there weren't bad moves. Let's look at the biggest mistakes from the most recent NHL offseason. All right, so I thought coming into the offseason, we'd have a lot of desperate teams in the NHL, and we'd have a lot of really bad moves made. And credit the league, not as aggressive as I thought. Still some bad moves, though. Let's go. The first biggest mistake. We only have 4 on this one, although a couple of them are doubled up on. The first biggest mistake, I get the number 4 on the list, because I do have this ranked. The New York Islanders. Not necessarily the Dobson trade, per se, although I don't think they did well on it. But I think the biggest issue I have is not following it up with anything. They were hoping to be able to piece the picks that they got from Montreal, move up and get something big in the top 5 of the draft and really make this a home run trade. They weren't able to do that, but I still thought, kind of recognizing that Dobson wasn't going to be part of the future, locking in to a bit of a different path was probably the way to go with the Islanders. And instead, they're just kind of staying steady. This is not a good hockey team. And I felt like they really could have put themselves in a better spot for a better draft pick to speed up the process of the rebuild if they did anything this offseason. And I just don't think they accomplished what they needed to. So that is the 4th biggest mistake I have of the offseason. At number 3, it is their New York counterparts, the Rangers, with the Gavrikov deal. I don't know what the Rangers are doing. And I think it's a very weird time for them where they were obviously going for a rebuild. Everything went wrong a season ago. And that they move on from Kako. They bring in JT Miller to try to fix everything. And you're trying to figure out what direction you're going to go in. Gavrikov, 7x7. Like, I get solid defender, all of that. That feels like an overpay to me for a guy who doesn't move the needle on a team that needs to move the needle. Again, one way or the other. Are we an aging team trying to make a push for the playoffs? Like, Gavrikov, okay, but I don't think he's a real difference maker when you get him away from Los Angeles. And if we're going for on the rebuild side, well, he's strong enough that it's not going to be like a guy as part of a teardown. And if we are doing that, that's a pretty big contract to have on our books for 7 seasons. I don't think he's going to age well. I don't think he's that good, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't think he is worth that contract. So I think for what it means for the direction of the team and just what it shows in the decision-making, whatever, I think this was a big mistake for the New York Rangers. At number 2, our bronze medalist, this one is more quantity than quality. But Kuraly, Jeannot, Arvidsson for the Boston Bruins. Kuraly 2 years, Jeannot 5 years, and Arvidsson acquiring him from the Oilers at a time where everyone thought Edmonton would have to attach something to that player to move on from him. Instead, you give up something to bring him in. Kuraly at 2 years, whatever. Like, that's not going to be devastating for the franchise. I just don't think he's that good. Jeannot at 5 years at 3.4. This whole locking in role players for term, I don't get it at all. The cap hit is even way too high. Like, you didn't even get the cap savings for a guy of Jeannot's abilities at this point. He's not going to turn into whatever people thought he was going to be when he's getting traded for first round picks all over the place. Like, he's not that guy. He's going to be playing a role player spot for you. And if you're going to be doing that, you can get a kid from the AHL for $890 a year instead of 5 years at 3.4, and then to give up something to bring Victor Arvidsson in, it doesn't make any sense. I thought this was a dreadful offseason for the Boston Bruins. But the number 1 biggest mistake from the National Hockey League offseason happened out in Los Angeles as they go for term with Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin. This team was so close a year ago. They felt like, and I get like they end up getting blown out by the Oilers in the last few games of that series, but they were one of the top scoring teams in the NHL after the trade deadline. When they brought in Kuzmenko, a lot of good things happened for the LA Kings. They beat themselves in that Oilers series, right? Byfield not being able to clear the puck. A horrendous challenge on a goalie interference call that gives the Oilers life and allows them to get back into that series. They beat themselves, and I think they're taking the wrong lessons from that. We need veteran experience, and we need these solid, proven guys. Like Perry, I think that makes a ton of sense. Ceci and Dumoulin, for more than 0 years is too much. For more than 1 year is mind-boggling. And it was like 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 or something like that. Like, just awful contracts for a team that felt like they were close. And so that is why the LA Kings made the biggest mistake of the NHL off-season. Let's now move to the world of combat sports, shall we? As we now get ready for a big boxing weekend. 2 of the sport's biggest stars in the world of boxing will face off this Saturday in a fight that it's still unbelievable that it's happening. It's also happening on a very big platform on Netflix, which means that for everyone involved, this is a grand spotlight. Obviously, we know Canelo and Crawford, but who are some of the other fighters that we should be paying attention to for this upcoming bout? Let's take a look at the fighters to watch for Canelo against Crawford this weekend. It is a gigantic fight weekend in the sport, and obviously the big stars are the ones who shine, right? We know Canelo, we know Crawford, but this is a good time for a few lesser-known fighters to make their way up. So let's take a look at the fighters to watch on Canelo against Crawford this weekend. We will start, they're both on the main card as well. We will start with Christian Mbili, who is coming in as the defending WBC interim world super middleweight champion. That's a lot of words. He's undefeated, 29-0, 24 wins by knockout. This is an exciting fighter, and one that I think a lot of people are going to be very entertained by. And so given that it's a relatively difficult opponent this weekend, but given the excitement that he can bring into the ring and kind of that record that you can flash up there, this is a guy that people could be talking about coming out of this show with Canelo against Crawford. So he is absolutely a fighter to watch for this bout on Netflix. The other fighters to watch are both facing each other. It's the co-main event with Callum Walsh taking on Fernando Vargas Jr. Walsh is someone that, this is a Zuffa boxing card, TKO boxing now. Walsh is someone that has had the attention of the UFC for a while. They were putting his fights up on Fight Pass and really kind of building that hype around him. So it makes sense that the first TKO offering, this guy's going to be in the co-main event. Again, undefeated, lots of knockouts. He's going up against Fernando Vargas Jr., who is undefeated with a lot of knockouts. Now, I do think that Vargas Jr. is being brought in here to get an exciting fight out of Walsh, but to get him a win still, and one that feels like a big deal because he is facing someone who is similar with him, undefeated, with a lot of knockouts. But again, Vargas, that power plays, man. And so I think that this is going to be, I don't think it's going to be Taylor Serrano from the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight or anything like that, but I think a lot of people are going to be talking about these two guys and get very excited about these two guys as we get ready for the main event on Saturday in what should be just an absolute brawl-out classic between a couple of very entertaining fighters on this card. So again, more Fight Week coverage to come on Couch Potato Diary leading up to the preview on Friday of the big fight on Saturday. Time now for some professional wrestling talk. And look, we are a couple hours into this stream already. If you're a wrestling fan and just want the wrestling talk, there's a podcast for you for that. It's called Living Room Lariat, the wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. It is all the wrestling content that comes out on Couch Potato, which is going to stay on Couch Potato. But if you only want the wrestling, it is all going to be bundled up in one nice spot for you. And there's going to be some stuff that you don't get on the flagship show. So it's a project that admittedly I've been a little bit slow on, but one that I'm really excited about, and excited about a few different opportunities that we can do with that as well. So Living Room Lariat, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. WWE Raw had quite the act to follow after the big return of AJ Lee on SmackDown. So how did they do? Really well. Until not. Let's break down WWE Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw, coming to you from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And honestly, really, I thought a pretty good show. It had some very high-level moments. Let's break it all down, shall we? The main part of this was AJ Lee, CM Punk, Becky Lynch, and Seth Rollins. It was fantastic. Every bit of it. AJ coming out, cutting a very real promo, talking about her mental health, talking about therapy, getting a therapy chant, and getting the applause for like taking the time for her mental health and everything like that. This is not a promo that she could have cut in her time in WWE. Not that she wasn't capable of it, but one that just would not have fit with the direction of the company. But you can very clearly see that times have changed now, and she fits into it. I do think, like, you could see there were some nerves with her with this, but she looked comfortable. She looked like AJ Lee. She looked great. Got her points across really, really well. The interaction with her and Becky was brilliant. And Bubba was talking about it on the, what do they call it? The show they have on Sirius XM. But, like, Becky selling visually for AJ is fantastic. Like her just being like, oh my God, it's AJ Lee. Oh my God, it's AJ Lee. What do I do? Like that. Excellent. Immediately brings a level of reality, I guess. Legitimacy. That's what I'm looking for. Legitimacy to the AJ Lee character. Becky Lynch, aces on that. The promo battle back and forth, a lot of fun. Seth coming out. Your mileage may vary on him, but he is still a very important part of this and made it very entertaining. And then CM Punk coming down and doing all of that. Like, I think everyone played the role they were supposed to perfectly in this. I said before, I know we were setting up for the tag team match for WrestlePalooza. I want this to be forever. I think these are 4 very entertaining performers and 4 that could really make this take this all to a higher level as it's going on. So I don't want this to be a one-off. I want this to be kind of an extended feud with all of them. And you can tag team match and then intercontinental title match and world title match, all these different things, back to a tag, whatever. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of intersect it all. And I think it'd be really, really entertaining and be a whole lot of fun. So I just want all 4 of these in as many combinations as we possibly can. To start the show, we get the Usos. And I mean, these two, it's just like riding a bike, right? And you kind of forget because Jay has stolen a lot of the attention from these two over the last 18 months or so. You forget how good a promo Jimmy is when he gets rolling in that way. And it does look like there's a little bit more attention being paid to Jimmy, to his physical look. There were some times where it was getting, and I mean, coming from me, who's to say, but sometimes where maybe it was getting a little bit more on the softer side. He's still a phenomenal athlete, but it does seem like even just in the last little bit, kind of trimmed down there a little bit and gotten in really good shape. So these are, I don't think this is going to be a really long run as a tag team with them, but they were great. It does kind of feel like they're here to be cannon fodder, but honestly, like keeping Jay out of what is appearing to be a crowded world title picture at the moment, putting him in a tag team. I said before, a tag team feud with the Usos against the New Day reversed, where it's the Usos as the baby faces and the New Day as a heel. Sorry, I think having that would be a really, really fun program to have. So if they want to keep these guys together for a bit, I think that's fun, and then kind of splinter them off into a singles run once that is done. Again, I think you could do that and just kind of keep Jay out of the title picture and keep him feeling strong still. I think an Asuka-Nikki Bella feud is going to be really fun. It's still really entertaining what they're doing with Asuka and Kairi Sane. Rhea Ripley's involvement as well makes a lot of sense, sets up a lot of interesting interactions as well. Also, I'm seeing in the chat here, just quickly, there's the fantasy football question, which 2 do I start? I will get to that in a second here. We'll just wrap up the wrestling, and then we'll get back into the fantasy football conversation. But the one thing that I found this week very kind of grating, there is a lot of same on this show. Like AJ Grande Americano, cool, fun match, all that. We got a second guy coming out, Dragon Lee helping, whatever. But the El Grande Americano stuff is feeling the same every week. You know that at some point, someone's going to run down, someone's going to interfere, someone else is going to come down and help, and that's going to be that. And we need an evolution here. We need this to take a step forward. It was neat for a little bit. Oh my gosh, it's a guy wrestling. It's like a Captain America thing, but and the Gulf of America, a little cringy, but whatever. Fun, fine, whatever. We need some advancement in this now. It is becoming very one note. The same thing with the Judgment Day stuff in the backstage area. Like, oh wow, Dom and Finn have subtle passive aggressive heat. I never. We get it, right? So we need progressions in these. And then the same with the show close. It is the same every week. It reminds me, like you watch, I think it's the rise and fall of WCW, but where they were talking about like the freshness of WWE compared to what WCW was doing. And with WCW, it was just the same guys every week. And Eddie Guerrero in the thing said, you couldn't tell what week it was on our show because it was just the same thing all the time. And so if you were to go back and be like, oh, hey, by the way, like go check out Raw. Oh, what happened? Oh, there was a beatdown at the end featuring The Vision and a few guys that Seth Rollins is loosely rivaling with. Okay, so all of July and August then? Like, what are we doing? It's been the same thing every single week. And Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, stars. Love them. Give me as much of them on my television as you possibly can. But let's freshen it up a little bit. Instead of talking head promo at the start, Braun Breaker making some kind of a reference to someone's age and I'm going to kill you, and then match at the end that ends either in a distraction finish and then a beatdown, or in a disqualification and a beatdown. I need something else from these guys now. I need a little bit more development than just they're going to interfere every week, because then we're just getting into House of Torture and it sucks. And we're very much treading into it sucks territory. And I don't want that, because I'm entertained by everyone who's involved in these. So overall, a good show from Raw, but we need some advancement. We need some evolution. We need to move on in quite a few of these. So again, that is the wrestling talk for today. On Twitch, again, we have a fantasy football question. So let's hit the fantasy football thingamajig and talk some more fantasy. Fantasy football question coming from the Twitch chat. Apologies, BXRNs. I'll try to pronounce that better later. Apologies. But asking the question in the chat, which two do I start? Hampton, Pollard, or JCM? Let's just quickly, because I don't have all the matchups memorized just yet. I know Hampton is taking on the Raiders this week, and Vegas run defense looked pretty good. Hampton feels like an automatic start for me at this time. Like, I just think he is going to be such a part of a good offense that I feel like that is a guy that you roll with each week. The next two are tricky because Green Bay's defense looks really strong, and they are playing Washington with old Krosky there. So I can understand maybe trying to stay away from that one, but Pollard against the Rams, I have real concerns about. I think that this is still a young offensive line, an up-and-coming offensive line, and I think this is a really good Rams front seven that can shut the door there. So I would go Hampton and JCM in that spot, and in that order. I would rank them Hampton, JCM, Pollard for the running back starts there out of that conversation. So again, keep the fantasy football questions coming. We're going to have a little bit more NFL talk here as this stream rolls on. It's also going very long on the stream today. So thank you everyone for hanging out as we roll on. But for those who are watching, again, the stream, we're going to roll on as normal. For those listening, podcast is in the books. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, rate, review, and subscribe. Check out seaofdead403.ca. We got an awesome shirt right now, hanging in the dome with Jerome. It is all in support of kids sport, helping kids to reach their full potential in sport and taking away the financial barriers from that. I love all the work that I've been able to do with kids sport through 960, and now getting to do a little bit more with Sea of Dead. So check it out, seaofdead403.ca. And we got the great hat here as well. I need to get better lighting on this hat. Showing it's the star of the show. What are we doing here? But anyway, head over to seaofdead403.ca and make sure you check out swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PK Primetime. So again, people watching, we're going to roll on. People listening, podcast in the books. We get ready for another week in the NFL by figuring out where everyone stands. We got power rankings coming up in both the NFL and CFL, plus some more NHL previewing to do. And whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat. We've had a lot of fantasy football questions. Let's keep those rolling. But let's roll on now with some power rankings discussion from the National Football League. Ranking teams 32 through 1. Not going to do a full in-depth breakdown on every one of these teams, but we'll do a little bit. Anyway, our worst team in all the land, it has to be the Miami Dolphins, right? Like, they look so bad in that game. Offense, horrendous. Defense, you made Daniel Jones a fantasy dumpster darling. How awful of you. Just bad. Bad all around. Genuinely an atrocious football team. Worst place in the league for week 1. Up next, it is the New Orleans Saints. They are at number 31. Again, like, they played really hard. There at least is that. They didn't give up. They battled. They tried. They just suck. That's all. Like, they're just not very good. The quarterback's not great. The offensive line isn't too hot. The receivers, there's none of them. They have a good running back. They have no one on defense. But aside from that, I know who their coach is. So they are at number 31 this week. At number 30, it's the New York Giants. They are, of the teams that we've talked about so far, they are the ones that have the most, I guess, potential upward mobility because of how good that defense is. But the offensive line is a real problem. The lack of weapons is a real problem. We will see if they can dig out of it, but I think it's a big concern there. At 29, it's Carolina. It just looked bad, and it looked like last season, so they have earned no benefit of the doubt. Same with Cleveland at 28. So our bottom 5 this week, Cleveland, Carolina, the Giants, the Saints, and the Dolphins. Our next group here, the Tennessee Titans at 27. Again, I think there's, for the next couple, actually, the Titans at 27, the Cardinals at 26. There is the possibility of some upward mobility for them, because I like a lot of the pieces. For Arizona, I like a lot of the pieces on offense, and I think the defense is good. And they got a win. It just didn't look very impressive. So as the season goes on, as they get into a little bit more rhythm, there could be some more growth happening there. For the Titans, a few things, like I thought the offensive line might be a little bit better, but they had a really tough opening draw. And now they have a tough one in the second game too, against the Rams. But I do think as time goes on, you'll see a little bit more from Cam Ward. You'll see a little bit more from this offense. And I think you'll see that defense continue to shine. So they have a chance to move up. But for now, we're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Speaking of that, at 25, it's the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't know how you could see this game and think, oh no, these guys have it. Like, I get watching, it's like, okay, 4 points within Philly. That's great. But let's factor in the Eagles were missing their best defensive player, and that's why you were able to run all over them. And then when that defense made any adjustment at all, you couldn't do anything. So I still don't think this is a good Dallas team. They don't get the benefit of the doubt from me. They're at 25. At 24, it is Jacksonville. It's cool you got to win over Carolina, but I'm going to need to see more of it before I move you up. 23, the New York Jets. I'm being stubborn on them. Maybe they deserve to be a little bit lower, but I still like a lot of the talent that is on that football team. At 22, it's Atlanta. Maybe they deserve to be a little bit higher than this with a close win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I didn't think they were all that great last season, and so a good loss is still a loss this year, and they need to kind of show it to me before I can move them up a little bit more. Same thing with New England at 21. A lot of people very excited about the Patriots this year, but given that they lost to the Raiders, and given that a lot of that is hypothetical, I can't move them up just yet based off of vibes. At 20, it's Cincinnati, maybe a little bit low considering they won and the high-level talent that is on this team, but the concerns are still there. I hate the offensive line, I hate the defense, and I hate that it took them a couple of missed field goals to beat the Cleveland Browns. So they have a chance to move up quite a bit, but they're not right now. They're at number 20. At 19, it's Chicago. I just liked a lot of what I saw from the Bears on Monday night and think that there are a lot of positives that you could take away from that if you're a Bears fan, and a lot to be excited about in Chicago. At 18, it's Indy. They had the biggest win of the week, so I can't put them very far down, but we talk about like the biggest upward mobility. They have the most downward mobility of anyone in the power rankings this week. At 17, it's Seattle. The defense was better than I thought, and I guess better than I was going to give them credit for. And so I have to kind of readjust where I'm at on this football team. So right now, middle of the pack feels fine. Right smack dab in the middle is the Vegas Raiders, which is essentially their Super Bowl. So for them to be up this high right away, maybe there's a little bit of homerism in him. I'm a Raider fan. We got that. But I still think that they showed enough improvements that you can think of this as a middle of the road team in the National Football League. At 15, it's the Steelers. Begrudgingly, I have them in the upper half of the NFL. I still have major concerns about the quarterback and a lot of stuff on that team. But for now, that was a win, and they're at 15. At 14, it's the Houston Texans. They come away with a loss, but they lose to a good football team. And I think they showed that that defense is legitimate and is good enough that they deserve to be in the upper half of the NFL power rankings. At 13, it's the Los Angeles Rams. I still worry about the health of the quarterback. I still worry about the health of all of their pass catching options, but that defense will play. And so I think they're in, honestly, them against Houston was kind of a perfect matchup in week 1. A lot of similarities on both sides of the football. At 12, it's San Francisco. Pretty good win. Some more injury problems. George Kittle is going to be out for the next 4 weeks. Brock Purdy didn't look perfect, but looked okay. Anyway, after that, at 11, it's Tampa Bay. A good win, good football team, I think that. At 10, it's Detroit. I have major concerns about the Lions. This one is a bit more of a reputation call, getting them up this high. They were one of the best teams in the league last year, so you have to give them at least a little bit of benefit when they lost to a very good football team. At 9, it's Denver. We did the kind of victory lap and all that earlier, and I have concerns about Denver going forward. But again, playoff team last year, pretty convincing win, although not as convincing as you want against the Titans, but not one where it was like, oh my God. So that's, I'll have them at 9. At 8, it's Washington. Maybe deserve to be a little bit higher, but when you look at the teams ahead of them, I just couldn't justify putting Washington up over any of these teams, and I still worry about some things falling off with this group. At 7, it's Minnesota. That honestly felt too low for me because I liked the offseason that they had, and JJ McCarthy showed me what I needed to believe in this team. But again, the teams above them, I felt like just kind of deserved it. At 6, it's Kansas City. Defending AFC champions, yes, they lost, but I thought Mahomes looked phenomenal, and that is enough to make me think this is still an upper team in the NFL. At 5, it's the Chargers. I loved how this offense looked. I loved how Justin Herbert looked. The defense, I still have some, questions about, but Justin Herbert looks like he's taken a step, and that is a huge, huge thing for the Chargers, which puts them in the top 5. At 4, Green Bay Packers. I loved him coming into the season, even before the Micah Parsons trade, I'll have you know. I liked him a lot, and I loved that performance. I thought they got after the pass great. I thought they defended the run pretty well, and offensively, they were able to put up a lot of numbers. So I like them a bunch. At 3, Baltimore, I get that they lost, but you cannot watch that game and tell me that they are not one of the best teams in the National Football League. At 2, Philadelphia Eagles. It feels weird to not have the defending champs as the number 1 team after they won. It was just a little snug against a team I don't have a lot of respect for in Dallas for me to fully put them into that high spot as the number 1 team, and especially coming off of the game of the year and one of the more impressive wins you will see in the regular season. That game alone, Buffalo deserves to be number 1. Looking like Josh Allen, looking like the best player in the world. Keon Coleman looking like he has elevated his status, and to be able to come back and score 17 points in the final 4 minutes is just a masterclass. So, huge moment for the Buffalo Bills. Hopefully they want to be number 1 at the end of the season, but for now they are number 1 at the beginning of the year as they sit atop the power rankings for this week. For those who are listening in podcast form, this is probably going to be a little bit dated, but for those watching on the stream, this is some breaking news from Blue Jays land. So the Toronto Blue Jays, coming off of a frustrating series with the New York Yankees, now getting a little bit more bad news, as Bo Bichette has been placed on the IL, retroactive to September 7th, with a left knee sprain. 10-day IL, retroactive September 7th. Called up in his place is Joey Loperfido, who is going to be active for the game against the Houston Astros. So this is not great when looking at the Blue Jays and their struggles to get big hits in big moments against the Yankees to now take away one of the guys who could actually get those hits and has been having an unbelievable season with the bat is really not the news you wanted right now with Bo Bichette going down with that injury. So it limits an offense that already felt like it was having a tough time keeping it between the white lines anyway. So a difficult bit of breaking news for the Blue Jays. Loperfido gets called up. He was one of the guys who was a difficult send down when people were starting to get healthy. And so I think that he can play a bit of a decent bench role, but again, would have been nice to overdo it depth-wise at the major league level with some offense at the trade deadline instead of where they're at right now. So don't know what they're going to do lineup-wise. I would imagine Clement is a middle infielder now, and either they give him a shot at second and put Jimenez over at short, because that was maybe kind of the game plan if Bo left in the offseason, or just Clement locks in at shortstop. Barger is plopped right in there at third base, and then either Springer or Loperfido checks in the outfield or whatever, but I would imagine that's kind of how they play it now. So the versatility of Clement and Barger helping them out to work their way through this, but it's a tough loss, no question. A tough loss for Bo and for the Blue Jays here. And it's coming at a bad time where the Yankees are closing in and you have a very difficult series with the Houston Astros coming up at the Rogers Center. So a tough blow for the Blue Jays offense. Let's continue on now with the regularly scheduled programming today and get back into the NHL preview as we've been looking, just started it, looking at last year, what we can learn, what we can take from that. Now it's time to look to the future. Which teams are set up the best, not just for this year, but for down the road as well. Let's take a look at the best cores in the National Hockey League heading into the 2025-26 season. Everyone is always focused on your core. I mean, okay, yes, you're making some moves, but what is the core of your team? What is the foundation, the lifeblood of a championship contender? Well, today we're going to run through the teams that I think are the best set up for that. This is a combination of looking at now and the future. So there are going to be a couple of teams that, oh, you think these guys have a better roster than blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, maybe not right now, but soon. So that's the premise here. Coming in at number 5, it is the Mammoth of Utah. The frustrating part for fans in Arizona, both of them, that was elitist, I'm sorry. But the frustrating part for fans in Arizona was that something very good was being built there. And to lose it right when it was getting towards the apex has to be really frustrating. But now you look at what Utah has and acquiring Peterka, the strength they have on the blue line. They got some kids that come in and are big and solid and just very good as well. Can skate, they have put together a very exciting foundation. And I said it earlier, if Gunther doesn't get hurt, this team's probably a playoff team last year. But you pair that with Krause, you bring in Peterka, you have just some solid guys on that blue line. If Vemelka's the guy between the pipes, this is a team that's going to be a problem for a while. I think. I think Gunther can be a very high-level player. Peterka is a really high-level goal scorer. Krause is just a guy you win with in the playoffs. Their entire blue line is just solid dudes that are going to be absolute bleeps to play against. So everything kind of lines up for this team. The only thing keeping them down on this list is that we just haven't seen it yet. We have seen it from a number 4 team. It's the Edmonton Oilers. I get on them a lot for being a very poorly constructed team and all of those things. But you cannot argue with a core of Evan Bouchard, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. If we want to put Hyman in, I do think that's going to start to age out a little bit. Nuge kind of the same. But there's still, even just McDavid himself is core enough to get you to think that this is one of the tops in the NHL. Now, obviously, this could change aggressively by this time next year. But for now, a group that has gone to the Cup final in back-to-back years with 2 of the 3 best players in the world actively on their team and a very talented high upside defenseman back there, you have to have them on this list. So they are at number 4. At number 3, it is the Montreal Canadiens. I love this group. I picked them as a playoff team last year. Adding Jonathan Drouin makes it, or not Jonathan Drouin, sorry, Noah Dobson makes them all the more terrifying as a group now. I think it gives you that legitimate solid number 1 on your blue line where you already have Hudson and Gooley and all of those guys. I know I'm missing a bunch. Like, it is just an exciting young blue line that they have. And then the forward group, Slavkovsky taking the step and kind of vindicating that pick at number 1 overall is huge for them. Caulfield is turning into a premier goal scorer in this league. Suzuki, just a great kind of do-it-all guy. They have built a very, very solid roster that looks like one that can be a championship caliber one. I honestly think very, very soon. At number 2, the Dallas Stars are my next one up. To get Rantanen as that no doubt locked-in superstar, massive. Absolutely massive. And you combine that now, he's going to be there for a while. Wyatt Johnston, ready to take a step forward. As of right now, they still have Robertson. Don't trade that kid away because you got a lot there with him. So a lot to be excited about with that player and just that offensive group alone. And then you add on like a Maverick Bork and some of the other younger pieces that people are excited about. And it gets pretty good pretty quick in Dallas. And then the blue line, Heiskanen, still criminally underrated as a strong defender in this league. You pair that with Harley as well, and it all lines up. And then Ottinger between the pipes, it all lines up as a team that can make some noise now and down the road. Couple honorable mentions before we get to number 1. First, the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's still Matthews, Nylander, Nyes, Cowan, Tavares. Like, there's still a great mix of now and the future. Just not enough, I think, in my opinion. And too much, to put them behind Utah and Montreal feels silly. But I guess the problem for Toronto is that we've seen it not work enough that it's tough to be like, oh, no, trust me, they're set up perfectly. You know, like we've just seen it not work out more than we have with the other groups. And then Anaheim's the other one, that kind of up and coming with a lot of very exciting pieces on that team. But the number 1 team that is set up as the best core in the NHL, this feels a little cop-outy, but it's the Florida Panthers. Maybe they're not set up great for 8 years down the road, but they've won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and it's just kind of a perfectly built hockey team with enough speed and skill that they can thrive in the regular season, and enough sandpaper experience and grit that they can win and score the goals that they need to in the biggest moments. And they are all still young enough that they're going to be a problem for a bit here still. So I don't see how I could put anyone at the top of this other than the 2-time defending champions who still have basically that whole roster intact, close to, for the most part, or just in their peak. So those are the teams that are best set up for now and the future in the National Hockey League. Back in the Twitch chat, Toxic saying Bo has been put on the 15-day IL, sorry. Yes, Toxic. Saw that. Really sucks. Really, really sucks. I just talked about it before the best cores. Talked about how I'm worried about what the lineup looks like now. I'm worried that a team that was struggling to get hits now loses their best hit getter in big moments. So very worried and don't like that news, even one bit, coming from the world of Major League Baseball. One more stop on the stream for today. It's IKF time. It's funny. I was talking about what I think the lineup could look like. I didn't even put him in there, which is not ideal. He hits fastballs really well. I should give him that. And I do think like it hasn't been an overly inspiring journey in the blue. It was a really tough start for him, but I think there's a solid guy there. But no, I had Clement moving to short, have Barger go to third, and Loperfido, whoever in the outfield, Springer as well, kind of spread it in that way. But IKF will definitely have a role in this team for sure. Let's wrap this thing up now with some CFL power rankings. Last week, Toxic was very excited that I would have to say the Calgary Stampeders were the best team in the CFL. Well, now, while I think they're a very good team, I'm going to have to say they're not. Who's the new number 1? You can probably figure it out. Where does everyone else stand? Probably can't. It's a lot up in the air. So let's talk CFL power rankings. CFL Power Rankings going into another week as the season winds its way down. By the way, if you want more CFL coverage from me, I write over at 3 Down Nation, so make sure you check out my best bets every week and my thoughts after every Rider game. Coming in at number 9, I never thought we would get here. It's the Montreal Alouettes. Now, McLeod Bethel-Thompson has just been activated off the 6th game, so there's an opportunity for him to do some stuff and maybe get this team out of the spot they're in. But right now, with other teams that were behind them playing better, yes, they're getting healthier. Yes, I still think it's an awesome roster, but right now, you cannot ignore the problems that are happening in Montreal. They come in at number 9. At number 8, it is the BC Lions. Again, Nathan Rourke, amazing quarterback. Like a lot of the pieces on this team, but it's just too many, just about losses for this team that I can't put them higher up on the ranking. Glady on Fire with the message in Kick W stream. Thank you very much. I'm assuming they're saying that this is a winning stream, and I appreciate that. Coming in at number 7, it is the Ottawa Red Blacks playing some better football. We're getting wins without Drew Brown on the field. All of a sudden, they're right in the playoff race. They're going to need Drew Brown to get all the way there, but a couple of big wins gets them right there. At number 6, it is the Edmonton Elks. I don't know how you can ignore a win against Calgary by anyone here. So this is certainly a team that is on the rise. And we kind of talked about it, and I wish I would have nailed it a little bit more, but you kind of knew as the season was going on that this was going to be a team that was going to grow and was going to kind of come together as a unit and going to improve as the season went on. They had a very difficult schedule to start the season and then a rough start to trying to get everyone acclimated. They've got it figured out now. And this is a dangerous team, either as a team that could get into the crossover we'll see what's happening in Winnipeg with the injuries, but could get into the West and maybe be a team you don't want to play come playoff time. At 5, it's Toronto. Again, a couple of big wins in a row. Nick Arbuckle is going to start for them with Chad Kelly making his way back, but they have just turned every game into chaos. And that win on Labor Day weekend gets them again back into the title picture. So a lot to be excited about for Toronto. At 4, it's Winnipeg. It feels too high given the issues they have at quarterback and keeping that quarterback healthy, the issues they have on the offensive line, and a couple of tough losses against Saskatchewan. But, they basically only lose to the 2 best teams in the Canadian Football League. And I just can't, in all good conscience, say that Toronto, Edmonton, Ottawa, BC, Montreal are ahead of Winnipeg right now. So they come in at number 4. Our number 3 team in the CFL Power Rankings, the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That was a good win against Montreal last week. And I get Montreal still dealing with their quarterback issues, but Hamilton has just been able to keep their head above water, even at a time where they should be thriving, but still kind of same thing. I can't put them behind Winnipeg and then everyone else in the power rankings that they're just not there. So it's a lot of teams kind of bundled up. And then we get to number 2, and it has to be Calgary. I still think maybe the best team in the league, but that's a tough loss against Edmonton at a time where they are trying to keep pace with Saskatchewan for first in the power rankings, most importantly, but also first in the CFL's West Division. And to have that loss is just a real backbreaker. So not great for them. On the Saskatchewan side, they come in at number 1. I think you have to put them there, right? Like it's 2 wins over Winnipeg. I get they have 2 losses this year. They've both come against Calgary. And so maybe that should give Calgary the upper hand on them, but Calgary's losses have been some bad ones. Like Edmonton, I just talked them up, but still. And the 2 against Ottawa, weird circumstances, but still 2 against Ottawa. So Saskatchewan, just as of right now, getting those wins. They have control of everything now in the West Division. I had to put them as the number 1 team in all the land. So those are the power rankings for the CFL this week. And that, my friends, is going to do it for the stream today. We are coming up on 3 hours of the stream. Now I get, we had a little bit of the stream is going to start soon, and then we had an interview that I taped before, and then a little bit, but still, 3 hours we got to hang out today and talk sports. I love doing this with you guys. I have so much fun every day when we are going live with these. I loved the interaction with the fantasy football stuff. We'll definitely be doing more of that as the season rolls along. Love getting to shit talk with Toxic about the CFL. I want to see this thing grow. And quite frankly, kind of need to see this thing start to grow a little bit more to be able to keep doing this at the rate that we are doing it. And I'm really bad at self-promotion and all of those things. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't know how many more places you're going to get the talk of all of these different sports at the level that we can bring it while it's still not absolutely boring. So not to, I mean, the old Arn Anderson thing, not to toot my own horn, but toot. I think the shows are at a high quality right now. I love chatting with you guys. Anything you want to see more of, less of, whatever, let me know in the chat. You can find me on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein. But let's grow this thing. Let's give you guys more people to shit talk with in the chats while we are going on here on Couch Potato Diary. For live streams, the next one is coming up on Thursday for the podcast. That is going to be the next podcast live stream. Thursday at 10 a.m. Going to be doing our Thursday and Friday podcast at that time. Going to be doing a full video game stream coming up tomorrow. I'd said 10 earlier. I think I'm going to start that one right at 9. I like to get the day rolling with some video game playing in there. So we're going to be rolling with that 9 a.m. Mountain Time on twitch.tv/primetimepk. So come hang out, talk some sports. We'll play some video games and we'll have fun. And then we'll get back in here talking podcast stuff on a Thursday, presented by Sea of Dead, fueled as always by Swift Energy. Wherever you're watching this, we're going to be back live coming up Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.